NTD Newsroom, I'm Fiona G. President Donald Trump is announcing a reciprocal tariff this afternoon. This is before meeting with Indian Prime Minister Modi at the White House. The Senate confirms Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Health Secretary and Brooke Rollins as Agriculture Secretary. Kash Patel also clears a major hurdle to becoming FBI Director. An American aircraft carrier collides with a merchant ship near Egypt. The crash is the first for the Navy since 2017. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth joins a meeting with his NATO counterparts in Brussels. Why he says we have to make NATO great again. A flash flood watch is in effect for much of Southern California, with increased risks in burn scar areas. Evacuation warnings remain across LA County.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is set to become the next Health Secretary of the United States. He just secured enough Senate votes to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. The final vote was 52 to 48. The only Republican to vote no was Senator Mitch McConnell. He said in a statement that as a survivor of childhood polio, he does not condone someone who erodes trust in proven vaccines. McConnell also voted against the confirmations of Tulsi Gabbard for National Director of Intelligence and Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary. Some Republicans have expressed concerns about Kennedy's views on vaccines, but ultimately voted for him, including Senators Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Bill Cassidy, a medical doctor. Kennedy says he'll prioritize combating chronic diseases. He aims to do so by addressing the so-called corporate capture of federal health agencies, and as well as removing toxic chemicals from the nation's food supply. As HHS Secretary, Kennedy will oversee the FDA, the CDC, and the NIH. Another major update on Trump's cabinet picks. The Senate Judiciary Committee voted today to advance Kash Patel's nomination to lead the FBI. Lawmakers voted 12 to 10 along party lines. Democrats on the Judiciary Committee delayed Patel's vote last week after his first confirmation hearing. That was after he testified before the committee for 5 hours. Senator Dick Durbin accused Patel of directing a purge of the FBI before being officially confirmed as director. Patel's team denied the claim and said he has been patiently waiting for the confirmation process to play out. Patel says he aims to restore integrity, accountability, and equal justice to the justice system. He's likely to be considered by the full Senate as early as next week. Trump's pick for Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, was confirmed today. The Senate pushed her nomination through in a 72 to 28 vote. Rollins will now lead a department tasked with overseeing nearly all aspects of the nation's food system. Her duties will include setting standards for farming practices, livestock rearing, federal subsidies, and nutrition for schools nationwide. The United States is the world's largest food exporter. Rollins most recently served as president and CEO of the America First Policy Institute. She also served as acting director of the White House Domestic Policy Council during Trump's first term. The new Agriculture Secretary promised to modernize the USDA to accelerate disaster aid for farmers and tackle animal diseases. And President Donald Trump just announced plans to impose reciprocal tariffs on America's trading partners. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Town now joins us live. Iris, what's the president saying, and how exactly do these new tariffs work?
Good afternoon to you as well, Fiona. So President Trump just moments ago announced a sweeping new round of reciprocal tariffs, in which he says it means that whatever countries charge us, we will charge them back the same thing. Here's what he said inside the Oval Office. Watch.
And on trade, I have decided for purposes of fairness that I will charge a reciprocal tariff, meaning whatever countries charge the United States of America, we will charge them, no more, no less. In other words, they charge us a tax or tariff, and we charge them the exact same tax or tariff. Very simple. Nobody knows what that number is unless you go by the individual country. You can see what it is if you go to the individual country and you look at what they're charging us. In almost all cases, they're charging us vastly more than we charge them, but those days are over.
And a White House official this morning explained to us in detail the rationale and the goal of today's measures. So the reason why the administration is doing this is that the U.S. has been a very open economy, they say, and has been charging relatively low average weighted tariffs to other countries. But the U.S., they say, is facing higher tariffs from other countries and also, quote, non-tariff trade barriers, such as, for example, value-added tariffs, value-added tax. And in response, meanwhile, the U.S. wants to close this gap and really to reduce that trade deficit as a result of these trade practices. And the approach, meanwhile, is somewhat unique in that it's not a one-size-fits-all or a blanket approach. It will customize its approach to each trading nation, and looking at several factors when determining how much to charge them. One, of course, is how much in tariffs the country is charging the U.S. when importing U.S. goods. But also another factor is what they call unfair taxes, including value-added taxes and other costs to U.S. businesses, consumers, and also currency exchange rates that they say could pose an unfair trade advantage to the other nations. And based on these factors, the U.S. will then charge an equivalent reciprocal tariff in return to match whatever the other country is doing. Meanwhile, the question about how long this process will take, the official told us that it will happen, quote, in Trump time, which will mean very fast in terms of weeks or just months, to evaluate these criteria based on existing data. And of course, the goal here, as they say, is to reduce the $1 trillion in U.S. trade deficit and to increase national competitiveness. Fiona.
Certainly a lot of sweeping measures being announced today. But Iris, another question I have here is there room for countries to negotiate or avoid these tariffs at all?
That's a great question. So the official told us this morning that, of course, the biggest goal here is to get other countries to lower their tariffs. And he says that President Trump will be more than happy to lower our tariffs that we're charging them if they lower theirs. But he also mentions that it's not just tariffs, but also non-tariffs trade barriers that the U.S. is facing when it comes to, for example, other what they call unfair taxes. So it's a comprehensive look at what the other country is doing when it comes to how the U.S. will respond.
Iris, what about concerns that higher tariffs will end up raising consumer prices in the U.S.? How's the administration addressing that?
Well, the administration has been facing some criticism for economists and Democrats for saying that raising tariffs would lead to an increase in consumer prices here in the U.S. because of the more expensive imports that the U.S. is now getting. But the administration is saying that because of higher tariffs, the U.S. will actually gain in terms of external revenue, which will actually lead to what the official this morning called a positive fiscal impacts. So that's what the administration is saying, but he did also emphasize that more reports and assessments will come out to more detailed evaluate that. Back to you.
Well, we'll see what comes out of one of Trump's favorite words, tariffs. Iris, thank you for joining us. The White House now says the Department of Government Efficiency's cuts to federal spending total more than $3.4 billion. That's with a B. The cuts mostly come from federal contracts, and this all as President Trump also works to downsize government personnel. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more.
The Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, led by Elon Musk, appears to be making strides. The White House now puts DOGE's financial impact at more than $3.4 billion. Much of it is coming from cancellations to Department of Education contracts, totaling roughly $880 million. Another $780 million comes from a canceled contract to build a new embassy in South Sudan. Other cuts include diversity, equity, and inclusion training in education, cutting staff sent to house illegal immigrants in New York City hotels, and canceling subscriptions to Politico, along with funding to the New York Times and the Associated Press. President Trump this week signed an executive order to mandate that federal agencies work with DOGE on hiring, Musk defending the work of his organization.
We have this unelected fourth unconstitutional branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, which has, in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want.
House Speaker Mike Johnson this week said that DOGE found a shocking number of federal government expenditures that Congress did not approve. And Johnson said that DOGE is uncovering what elected representatives have tried to find for years but couldn't.
When duly elected representatives of the people request information to find all of these abuses, and it's not turned over to us. What it takes is an actual audit of the systems and the files themselves that are often hidden from Congress. That's what you're seeing right now, and that's why this is so exciting. They're uncovering things that we have known intuitively have been there, but we couldn't prove it. Now the proof is being provided.
It's unacceptable.
Many congressional Democrats, however, see it differently. At the Senate Budget Committee hearing on Wednesday, they were concerned that cuts would be made by DOJ to necessary programs.
Make no mistake, this budget resolution is the DOJ resolution, as it assumes the staggering amount of $1 trillion in unspecified cuts in 2025 alone and $9 trillion over 10 years. Where do we think that those sorts of dramatic cuts are going to come from? SNAP benefits that keep kids from going hungry, public schools, community health centers.
Last week, a federal judge blocked DOJ's access to Department of Labor data in response to a lawsuit from various unions. Another federal judge also restricted DOJ's access to Treasury payment system data. The White House accusing the justice system of being weaponized.
We believe these judges are acting as judicial activists rather than honest arbiters of the law.
In the meantime, the heads of federal agencies under executive order will consult with DOJ to shrink the federal workforce and limit hiring to essential positions. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Keeping our eye on DOJ, it is certainly getting more time in the spotlight, especially with a spending overhaul on the horizon. NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear what people have to say about the Department of Government Efficiency.
DOJ is now looking to cut $2 trillion off the federal budget. So do you think it's a bit of a long shot, or do you think it's doable?
Well, I think it's going to be difficult because there'll be a lot of ramifications to it, but I think it's long overdue that we take a clear look at where we're spending money, how we're spending money, because it seems like this process has been going on for 60 years without anybody really taking a close look at it.
I think it's doable, but I don't think it's doable without cutting healthcare costs or defense costs, which seems pretty sacrosanct right now.
I think there's a lot of waste in the government, and I think we need to look at it and reduce government spending.
It's not a long shot, and it's definitely not doable. We've had these systems in place for actually decades, and now you want to change it up at the last minute. Is sabotage, if you ask me.
They're finding processes that have been in place since 1955. And so, people that are still carrying paper that has been filled out by a human being down to another place where it's processed by a human being, even if they get to $1 trillion, if they get to 500 billion of waste and anything else, and I think it'll serve the country well.
Elon Musk yesterday was at the White House with President Trump, and then he was saying that the very idea of DOJ is to tackle unelected bureaucrats who, for some reason, have more powers than our elected officials.
And I understand how people would say that he's unelected, but it is true that Congress has the person is supposed to be the organization that spends the money, but let's be realistic about it. There are all kinds of people who are unelected who have tremendous power in spending our federal tax dollars.
I got something against it because he's not even an elected official, and he's coming up with all these programs like going inside OPM and firing the EPA, firing all these. Look, the accident we had with the FFA.
I do think there needs to be accountability and for all the bureaucrats too need to be held accountable.
It's a federal government. It is a bureaucracy. How do you think things get done? If you cut jobs of people who work in the government won't work.
I think what he was talking about is returning any sort of major regulation or major change. It has to be voted on by the Senate, by the Congress. Whether the Dems or the Republicans are controlling, there's nothing wrong with returning those kind of decisions to the people.
President Trump signs an executive order today to implement reciprocal tariffs. There will be a playback of that soon. But while we wait for that, let's bring in Paul Mueller, Senior Research Fellow with the American Institute for Economic Research. Thank you for joining us. Let me ask you this. We haven't seen that playback yet of the president signing this order. But so far, it seems the president hasn't given an exact, specific, concrete definition of what he means by reciprocal tariffs. What more do you know about that?
Well, that's really the question. When it comes to tariffs, the devil's in the details in terms of what the rates are going to be, who the rates apply to, how they're going to be paid. Again, President Trump has done a lot in the first couple of weeks. He's signed a lot of executive orders. He's signaling a lot of what he wants to do and where he wants to go. But most of his executive orders are actually directing various heads of departments and agencies to develop plans, to look into how this would play out. And my guess is that's what he's doing right now, too, that this idea of a reciprocal tariff, which could have sweeping ramifications in terms of responding to all the different kinds of tariffs that U.S. businesses face around the world. My guess is that he's probably going to kick that to the head of a trade agency to work out a plan in terms of what that could look like.
It's going to be interesting to see those details when they do come out. Paul, I think it seems fair, at least on paper, right, to say that we're going to charge other countries what they're charging us. Would you not say so?
Well, again, I think that intuition, I think a lot of people have that intuition, right? There seems to be a matter of fairness here, of equality between the different countries. But the challenge here is that tariffs are barriers to trade. So when you think about trading goods with someone just at a basic level, the lower the cost to that trade, the easier it is, the more of it you can do, and the more both sides benefit. And so when one party puts up a wall to slow down trading, it doesn't necessarily make sense to put up your own wall to slow down trading even further. And so this is what's counterintuitive about tariffs, is that tariffs often tend to cause problems for the countries that implement them, not just for the countries that have to pay them.
Well, then let me ask you this. Do you think that maybe Trump is doing this? You say other countries put up their walls, so then we put up our walls in order to encourage others to, take back their tariffs, and then we take ours down. Do you see that as being what's going to happen, or do you see this perhaps turning into a full-blown global trade war?
I think that there's definitely some potential for that. I mean, and Trump, again, he's hard to predict, but we've already seen him use tariffs as a negotiating tool in several instances just in the past few weeks. And so I could very well see him saying, hey, we're going to do this reciprocal tariff. We're going to throw up our barriers. But if you're willing to lower your tariffs, we'll lower our tariffs. And that kind of approach has a long history. Again, it's a bit of a risky game because the other way it could go. So if things go well, the other country lowers their tariffs, we lower our tariffs, we're better off with freer trade. But the other way it could go is we could get even more retaliation, kind of a tit for tat game. And that's the kind of situation we want to avoid if we can, because then things begin to escalate and everybody loses.
Well, let's hope that there isn't a tit for tat. But then specifically, is there a chance? I mean, we just heard our reporter Iris Tao mention it a bit, but is there a chance for countries here to find a way to get Trump to postpone tariffs like he did for Canada and Mexico?
I think that's certainly possible. And again, I don't know what Trump's international priorities are exactly, what he's hoping to do, but I could, he loves making deals. And so I could very well see individual countries kind of working with President Trump and Secretary Rubio and the State Department, and perhaps doing some kinds of concessions, maybe on immigration, maybe on a drug front. I think that that's very possible. I mean, the history we've seen, even with the first Trump administration when it came to tariffs, is that they were very willing, perhaps even too eager, to grant exemptions to different folks. And so my guess is that Trump would be very happy to make deals depending on the country and the issues at play. I could see him, thinking that this is a way to increase the negotiating power and position that he has.
Well, suppose these countries don't manage to secure any sort of exemption or delay, and these tariffs do go into effect. Trump is saying that these tariffs are going to end up benefiting and protecting U.S. manufacturers. So my question is, how long before U.S. manufacturers see these benefits, and which sectors are going to see those benefits first?
Well, that's an excellent question. I think what President Trump has said, that's not the whole story, right? Certainly some protected manufacturers may benefit, but other manufacturers that rely on imported goods that are part of their inputs, right? Maybe car parts, maybe pieces to a computer or to furniture. Some manufacturers will benefit, others will be harmed by these tariffs. And so that's why tariffs are kind of a two-edged sword. In terms of the effects, that's kind of a tricky question because businesses care not just about what's going on today, what are the rules, what are the tariffs today. They also need to make plans about a month from now, 3 months from now, a year from now. Business investment has a very long time horizon. This is, I think, one of the big drawbacks to Trump using tariffs as a negotiating tool is that it creates uncertainty in the business community in terms of what to plan on from their supply chains, where to invest money, where not to invest money. So once the tariffs go into effect, we'll see some immediate adjustment going on. But the bigger question is, what do businesses think the tariffs will be long-term, and how will they change their supply chains and their investment plans based on those expectations?
Well, Paul, tell us what you expect to see there. How long before Americans start to see the actual impact on their wallets?
Well, again, this is a process. It won't be immediate in terms of unless the tariffs are on consumer goods, goods that we get in the grocery store or at Walmart. It's going to take some time. So, for example, the steel and aluminum tariffs that have gone into effect just this week, we really won't see those effects for weeks or months. And again, it's going to vary a lot by sector of the economy. So that's part of what makes it hard to trace these effects out, because some things happen quickly, some things happen slowly. Some effects we might not see for 6 months to a year from now, as the higher prices of steel or aluminum work their way through the supply chain and building new skyscrapers or building new shipping containers, things like that. So it's very hard to measure with a lot of precision, but some things we'll see up front and then more we'll see over a longer period of time.
The Trump administration, the president himself has admitted there could be a period of pain before things get better with these tariffs. But the administration's also saying that we're going to see some relief, at least from higher tariffs, by extending Trump's 2017 tax cuts or cutting down on regulation and government spending. How do you see this?
Well, tariffs are the odd policy out, and it's something that kind of puzzles me a little bit. I see the negotiating angle, and I think Trump has been using that to some good effect for sure. But tariffs are the odd policy out. The deregulation you mentioned, the lower taxes, the pro-energy development, all of those things are very pro-growth. They're going to be good for the American economy, for job growth, for wages, for consumers. Tariffs are the one policy that economists generally agree pretty broadly are not going to support economic growth. The more you raise those taxes, the more you restrict trade, that's only going to benefit small subsets of society. But if you look at the broader effects on the whole of society, they're going to cause more harm than good. And so that's why you can use them as a negotiating tactic and get various benefits that way. There's some upside there, but you don't want to actually go down the road of implementing widespread tariffs or enter into a tariff war. That is going to actually slow and detract, I think, from the rest of President Trump's agenda.
Like you said, there's a lot that's still uncertain. But Paul, I'm going to ask you to look into your figurative crystal ball for a second at the larger picture, right? Where do you see the U.S. economy, the GDP, consumer spending power, all of that in a year from now or 4 years from now?
Right. Well, again, I think Trump's policies are very pro-growth, and so I think we're going to see a lot of improvement in wages. We're going to see productivity increases. We're going to see hopefully prices stabilize, maybe come down. Again, inflation's been kind of sticky, but I think that we're going to be, a year from now, certainly 3 or 4 years from now, assuming that Trump can follow through on reducing the size of government, cutting back on regulations, opening up energy production, the U.S. is going to be in a very strong state. I see high economic growth and certainly in a better place relative to most any other country in the world. So my outlook on the economy is definitely very positive. Again, we'll kind of see how much Trump can follow through and how quickly. As you know, there's a lot of resistance to some of the things he's trying to do. But if he can follow through on his campaign promises, get through the tax cuts, maybe even extend the tax cuts a little bit further, reduce government spending. That's a big question mark right now with the new spending bill. And then if they can continue to deregulate aggressively, that's all to the benefit of ordinary Americans.
Well, I think, Paul, your positivity is making a lot of our viewers feel a little more confident as well. Paul Mueller, Senior Research Fellow with the American Institute for Economic Research. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro sues the Trump administration. The Democrat says withholding billions in federal aid from the state is unconstitutional. And an American aircraft carrier collides with a merchant ship near Egypt. The crash is the first for the Navy since 2017. We'll be right back.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。 往往我们一个小小的动作，可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天鹰的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。所以，我希望给你的每一把琴，都是首先我所信任的。
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that we're making it through. My employees and I want to thank you for your continued support by extending our wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows only $14.98. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.98. But it gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows $29.98 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including my standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free. From all of us here at MyPillow, thanks America!
Thanks for staying with us. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is confirmed as the next Secretary of Health and Human Services. This as Trump's pick for Department of Education faced a hearing interrupted by protests. And our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez joins us live now from the Capitol. Luis, lots of activity in the Senate today. What's the latest on the confirmation process?
Very, very busy day on Capitol Hill. On the Senate side, we saw the confirmation of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be the next Secretary of Health and Human Services. This vote had all Democrats vote against RFK Jr. and one Republican defected and joined Democrats to vote against the nomination of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and that was Mitch McConnell. Now, this is the third nominee that Mitch McConnell votes against. He voted against Pete Hegseth, he voted against Tulsi Gabbard, and now he voted against RFK Jr. Still got confirmed on a 52-48 vote. We also saw the Senate confirm Brooke Rollins to be the next Secretary of Agriculture, and also a very, very fiery hearing with Trump's pick to be the next Secretary of Education. That's Linda McMahon. The beginning of the hearing, her opening statement was interrupted at least twice with protesters. Let's listen.
I appreciate that they're here. So, thank you, Chairman Cassidy, to make sure we can deliver for our education.
Thank you. I appreciate your responses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The committee will come to order.
Now, Senate Democrats pressed Linda McMahon on how come she's asking senators for their support in confirming her to be the next Secretary of Education when President Trump has mentioning wanting to abolish this department. Let's listen to her answers and an exchange with Senator Bernie Sanders.
Do you agree? And let me just once again get your feelings on this, that if there is a movement to abolish the Department of Education, it has to go through the United States Congress?
Yes, it is set up by the United States Congress, and we work with Congress. It clearly cannot be shut down without it.
We also saw today the in-committee vote in the Senate's Judiciary Committee voted to advance the nomination of Kash Patel to be the next director of the FBI. This was a party line vote, 12-10, with Senate Democrats attempting a last-minute delay of this vote, alleging that Kash Patel was already working on a purge of FBI officials before even being confirmed to lead this bureau. Let's listen to what Senator Dick Durbin, the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, had to say about this.
Follow the dots. Goes from the White House with Stephen Miller, the deputy to the president, to the acting Attorney General Beauvais, and the message is Kash Patel, KP, the initials, wants you to move faster in purging the ranks of the FBI.
The next nominee that we expect to see to have a vote on the Senate floor is Howard Lutnick, Trump's pick to be the next Secretary of Commerce. And at some point next week, we will see a full Senate floor vote on the nomination of Kash Patel to be the next director of the FBI.
Louise, what's going on with the House today? What's the latest on the budget battle?
Well, House Republicans on Wednesday finally released their budget resolution, their version of the budget resolution, which would kickstart the reconciliation process this Thursday. They're marking up the budget resolution in the House's Budget Committee. And we already have conservative spending hawks saying that this is a no-go for them, that there's not enough spending cuts, and the money allocated to make the Trump tax era tax cuts permanent is going to be above $4.5 trillion with only expected spending cuts of $2 trillion. So let's listen to what Congressman Tim Burchett had to say about this.
We're just playing games. We're going to make cuts and then give the money to the Pentagon. That's not making real cuts. They need to come to the table with some of us and make some serious offers and quit yielding to the war pimps over at the Pentagon.
Now, it's important to mention that Senate Republicans have already released and marked up their version of the budget resolution and have warned House Republicans that if they do not pass a reconciliation, a budget resolution that includes a permanent extension of the Trump-era tax cuts, they will not see that have a vote on the Senate floor. So, of course, tensions among House Republicans, but also tensions in between House Republicans and Senate Republicans. We'll see how this budget battle plays out.
Luis, great update as always. Thank you. And joining us now to discuss RFK Jr.'s confirmation is Michael Kane. He's the founder of Teachers for Choice and a RFK Jr. supporter. Michael, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you on. You've been pushing hard for Kennedy's confirmation. Now that he's in, what's the first move you want to see from him?
Today has been such a whirlwind of excitement, of phone calls ringing, of, chats and messages. We've really, those of us in the MAHA movement, those of us who have children who were injured by pharmaceutical products, who were fired for not getting the COVID shot like me, we're celebrating today. This is a huge thing. The shirt I'm wearing is the Kennedy 24 shirt from almost 2 years ago when Bobby Kennedy started his run for president. I've been working to see Robert F. Kennedy Jr. make it into the White House, and today is that day. So I'm not 100% sure what the first step should be because we're just elated over in Maha land. But I think the first step really needs to be data transparency. It's one of the things that Robert Kennedy has argued, and no one has really been able to push back on this and say it's not true. CDC and NIH are sitting on the best data in the country for us to find out what is causing the chronic disease epidemic in children, what's causing it in adults. For the past 40 years, that data has been kept locked up, only available to the anointed few. Kennedy has ran on saying, let's open it up. Let's look at it. Let's be transparent. And then we can really find out what is making Americans so sick. So I hope he gets to that right away. It's one of the promises he made that even the Democrats weren't able to shoot holes in. How can anybody really argue over transparency and honesty? So I hope he does that as he promised right away.
And transparency is a main theme across many agencies we've been seeing with the Trump administration. But another main theme we've been seeing, of course, is Trump calling for agencies and departments like USAID or the Education Department to be abolished or all but abolished, at least downsized. Do you see something similar like that happening with the NIH under RFK Jr.?
We've already seen signs of cuts. NIH just days ago, I believe, announced that administrative charges must be capped at 15%. So the NIH has grants out to all over the place, to Harvard, to Yale, to universities all across the country. These universities have been charging 67%, 68, 69% in just administrative costs, not even in the guts of the research they're supposed to provide for the NIH. So even prior to Bobby Kennedy getting in, the deputy heading NIH right now made it a rule that that is going to be capped at 15%. And this is just logical. This just makes sense. That doesn't say we don't want good science coming out of the universities. It says that the universities can't purge the U.S. taxpayer on administrative costs. Why are the administrative costs more than 50% of the budget of the research that we're supposed to be funding you for? So no, I don't think NIH is going to be cut in the manner that the Democrats are claiming. But I do think we're going to see new efficiency and far less waste, which how could we not want to see that? You know, Elon Musk just posted today on X showing a clip of Al Gore and Bill Clinton talking about back almost 40 years ago about how we need more efficiency, how we need to cut the size of government and the cost. What happened to that sentiment in the Democrat Party? I think we're mostly getting false alarms about cuts that is really just about running things right and being accountable to the American taxpayer.
Michael, I want to read you this quote from Kennedy. He says, "The first thing I've done every morning for the past 20 years is get on my knees and pray to God that he would put me in a position to end the chronic disease epidemic and to help America's children." Do you see Kennedy's faith guiding him in this new role?
Oh, absolutely. You know, that wasn't hyperbole when Bobby said that. He wasn't saying that for impact or effect. He's really been doing it. He was approached about 20 years ago by moms of children of autism, moms of children who were vaccine injured. And he learned so much, and it was so suppressed and it was so not talked about. It really touched him. And it was a job he said he never wanted. You know, he never wanted to go in that direction, but he felt a requirement. He felt now that he knew, he said so many times, I can't unsee what I have seen. I can't unsee the data. I can't unsee the science. It's a very profound statement from him you just read. Another one he made recently that has also resonated with me is that he said, if you're healthy, the American dream is your oyster. You have 1,000 different options in front of you. But if you're sick, you have only one dream, and that is to get better. And I think we are at a critical moment now where we're going to see the nation as a whole start to heal and start to get better. And I actually think it's going to happen quite rapidly. I have a lot of faith in Bobby Kennedy, especially what I'm seeing from Trump. You know, early on, I was very doubtful from Trump. I thought Trump was just using Bobby Kennedy as a tool to win the election. I was wrong. That is not the case. Trump truly believes in a large majority of the vision that Bobby has. And I am so hopeful for what the future of this nation has to bring to me, to my kids, to my family and generations ahead, now that we have this new administration and this new focus.
Being hopeful is always so important. I want to ask you this, Michael. We saw some Republican senators who were doubtful, or at least expressed some doubt, about Kennedy earlier on in his confirmation process, but then they ended up coming around and voting for him. Why do you think that was?
One of the big facts that's been missed by a lot of people, is missed by me. Politico just broke a piece yesterday or today that said all of the big medical associations stayed silent on the issue of Bobby Kennedy. So the AMA, the AAP that represents pediatricians were silent. They didn't recommend Kennedy, and they didn't write any letters against him. And one Republican senator from North Carolina, his name escapes me right now, but he went on record saying silence is complicity. He said, if these agencies like the AMA that have major power and influence aren't speaking out against Bobby Kennedy, why should I vote against him when the president is saying this is his nomination? So I don't know exactly what that's about. Some people believe, and this is a good argument, that they're afraid to go against Trump. Trump won in a pretty decisively, in the popular vote and along with the Electoral College. The mood of the nation is really on his side. So a lot of people think that these big medical associations just decided, well, let's not go against Robert Kennedy personally right now, and hopefully we'll be able to work with Trump and Bobby Kennedy moving forward. So I think that played a major role in getting a lot of Republican senators, many who get donations from medical associations and big pharma, to be able to vote yes on him because they didn't speak up at the critical moment.
Michael, last question for you before we go here. I think it's hard to speak about RFK Jr. without talking about vaccines, because that is a big talking point, even during his nomination process. How do you see him approaching that issue now that he's in office?
He has said over and over again that he supports vaccines. He supports safe vaccines. He supports good science around vaccines. He has said this for over a decade, probably close to two decades, since he first got into this. One piece of information that just came my way is that it's a little known fact that it is already law that Congress is supposed to review the safety data on vaccines annually or biannually. They're supposed to produce a report, and they're supposed to send that report to the American public and other critical agencies to say, hey, how are things going? Since in 1986, they removed liability to sue big pharma corporations that make vaccines. This was part of that law from 1986. It's never been followed. There has never been a congressional report produced, and this has been in violation of the law for 39 years. So I think some of the things we're going to see is Bobby Kennedy is just simply going to follow the law. He's going to require Congress, let's produce this report on vaccine safety that is now 39 years overdue. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a political genius, in my opinion, and from what I've seen from him in the years. And I think he's about to play a masterful game of chess to show people what the science really says. And I'm just really looking forward to see what happens. Oh, and the last thing I want to say is everybody out there, don't disengage. Don't disengage. I've been involved in this for years and years. Now is not the time to say, we got this, it's over, it's all good. The people need to be involved and pay attention now more than ever. Trump and Bobby Kennedy need our support now more than ever.
Well, I think it's fair to say that no matter who's in office, we all hope to see transparency and cooperation from the government. Michael Cain, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro sued the Trump administration today, saying that withholding billions in federal money from the state is unconstitutional. Shapiro's lawyers suggested that agencies continue to ignore court orders to restore access to the suspended funds. The federal agencies named as defendants include the White House Office of Management and Budget, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Departments of Energy, Interior, and Transportation. The Trump administration issued an order in late January freezing federal grants and loans. A judge then ordered the administration on Monday to unfreeze all of the funds for a second time. Shapiro's lawyers argue the pause violates the Constitution's spending clause. The Trump administration said the freeze was necessary in order to review whether spending aligned with the president's executive orders. An American aircraft carrier collided with a merchant vessel today near Port Said, Egypt. The Navy said the USS Harry S. Truman was the ship involved in the collision. The Truman is almost as long as the Empire State Building is tall, with a 5,000-member crew. Authorities said there were no injuries, flooding, or damage to the carrier's propulsion systems. None of the crew on the merchant ship were injured either. The Norfolk, Virginia-based Truman deployed in September to the Mediterranean and the Middle East. The carrier had just completed a port call in Suda Bay, Greece. While collisions involving U.S. Navy vessels are rare, 2 warships in the Asia-Pacific were involved in crashes in 2017. 17 sailors were killed then. Elon Musk says he will drop his nearly $100 billion attempt to buy OpenAI if it maintains its nonprofit structure. OpenAI is the maker of ChatGPT and the world's most valuable AI company. It currently operates as a nonprofit. Now, on Monday, Musk announced he's leading a group of investors who have offered to buy OpenAI for more than $97 billion. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman criticized the offer publicly. In a court filing yesterday, the company questioned Musk's rationale for the bid, but hasn't yet rejected it. The recent developments are part of a battle between Musk and Altman for control of the future of artificial intelligence. Musk was a co-founder of OpenAI, but eventually left the company. And when we come back, Elon Musk revealing that USAID-funded foreign media outlets sparked strong reactions in Europe, including from EU leaders. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
We are taught, you don't talk about your problems with nobody because you could get in trouble. And I've been through a lot. Anxiety, depression, sexual assault. When I decided to get help, my life changed. And the mental health box, that was one of the big tools. Accepting help means that we are allowing somebody to bless our life. It's freeing. We got stronger together. Love your mind.
Welcome back to Newsroom. President Donald Trump held a news conference earlier in the White House's Oval Office. Let's tune into that.
And that's what people can do with us. They can build a factory here, a plant or whatever it might be here, and that includes the medical, that includes cars, that includes chips and semiconductors, that includes everything. If you build here, you have no tariffs whatsoever. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think our country is going to be flooded with jobs.
What should consumers expect? Are prices going to go up short-term,
well,
long-term?
not necessarily. I mean, not necessarily, but I'll tell you what will go up is jobs. The jobs will go up tremendously. We're going to have great jobs, jobs for everybody. This is something that should have been done many years ago. China did it. I mean, China did it at a level that probably nobody's ever seen before. If you manufactured a car, you couldn't send it into China. The tariff was so high, so everybody went and they built in China. It was no big secret. So we're going to see, but it's going to mean tremendous amounts of jobs. And ultimately, prices will stay the same, go down. But we're going to have a very dynamic country.
But if prices go up, Mr. President, because of these tariffs, who do you think voters should hold responsible?
Oh, I think what's going to go up is jobs are going to go up. And prices could go up somewhat short term, but prices will also go down. And I think the farmers are going to be helped by this very much because product is being dumped into our country and our farmers are getting hurt very badly by the last administration. The last administration hated our farmers, like at a level that I've never seen before. I think our farmers are going to be helped. Jobs are going to be helped, but our farmers are going to be helped. Our manufacturers are going to be helped. And again, if somebody wants to come in, including the car companies, if they want to come in and build car plants, they'll do it without tariffs, and therefore prices won't go up. There could be some short-term disturbance, but long-term, it's gonna make our country a fortune.
So Americans should prepare for some short-term pain.
No, you said that. I didn't say that. You know?
What if the prices go up?
Let's see what happens. Nobody really knows what is going to happen other than we know that jobs are going to be produced at levels that we haven't seen before. We know that we think interest rates are going to ultimately be coming down because of things that happen, and they go hand in hand with the tariffs. But we think that the prices for some things, many things, it could be all things, will go down. Ultimately, will go down.
Mr. President, can you explain the timeline here, sir? There's a period of time for a review, a report, 180 days. Sure. What's the earliest date that you think tariffs will actually be implemented and executed?
Well, I would say maybe I'll ask Howard to answer that because he's going to be the one that's implementing. What do you think?
Our studies
should be all complete by April 1st. So we'll hand the president the opportunity to start on April 2nd if he wants. So I think we'll be ready to go on April 1st, and we'll hand it to the president, and he'll make his decisions. But remember, if they drop their tariffs, prices for Americans are coming down. Our production's going up, and our costs are going down. Remember, it's a two-way street. That's why it's called reciprocal.
Have you spoken to any American CEOs directly about this? Are they calling you and asking
I've
for
spoken to
exemptions,
many,
for
and
example?
many love it. And they say this is going to be the thing that makes our country really prosperous again. And this is going to be what pays down to $36 trillion in debt and all the other things. And this is going to be, this is an amazing day. I think this is going to be a very big day and in a very positive way for our country. Yes, please.
Mr. President, you've talked about the VAT and the EU before and your concerns with how the EU treats you. Do you have a number in mind on the European Union? Do you have an idea of where that number is going to land?
Well, what they are now is they have a 20% VAT tax, which we're considering to be similar or the same as the tariff. Plus, they charge lots of fees. And, you know, they're doing something else. European Union's been very tough on our companies. They sued Apple, they sued Google, they sued Facebook, they sued many other companies, and they're American companies, and the kind of numbers are staggering. And the court system over there is not very good to our companies. If you know that Apple had to pay, I think, $16 billion in a penalty, a court case that was really shocking because most people thought they would have won that court case, people that watched it. So they've been very tough. Airlines have called me up and they said, could you help us with Europe because they're charging us so many different fees. I got a call from the head of American, United, and other airlines saying, every time we land a plane, we get just absolutely killed by the European Union. And so they haven't been treated as good. You know, we think the European Union is wonderful. We all love Europe, love the countries in Europe. But European Union has been absolutely brutal on trade. Canada has been very bad to us on trade, but now Canada is going to have to start paying up. And Canada's been tough on the military because they have a very low military cost. They think we're going to, you know, protect them with our military, which is unfair. So Canada is going to be a very interesting situation because, you know, we just don't need their product. And yet they survive off the fact that we do 95% of what they do. And Canada is just absolutely, I say it, and sometimes people smile and sometimes they say, great idea, but Canada, their taxes would come down greatly. Their security would go up greatly. Amazing things happen to Canada. And really Canada in this particular, why would we pay $200 billion a year in subsidies to Canada when they're not a state? You do that for a state, but you don't do that for somebody else's country. So I think Canada is going to be a very serious contender to be our 51st state.
Negotiations ongoing with Canada. There was obviously a delay in implementing those tariffs.
I spoke to Governor Trudeau on numerous occasions, and we'll see what happens. But it just sets up so good for them. Look, the people would pay much less tax than they're paying right now. They'd have perfect military protection. They don't have any military protection because and you take a look at what's going on out there. You have Russian ships, you have China ships, you have Chinese ships, you have a lot of ships out there, and you know, people are in danger. This is a different world today. It's a different world. They need our protection, yes.
You just mentioned Elon Musk and the efforts that he's undertaking with your authority. You granted him new authority this week. Will he secure any new government contracts while he is working on DOGE?
No, not if there's a conflict. If there's no conflict, I guess what difference does it make? But we won't let him do anything having to do with the conflict.
Are you personally checking to make sure there's no conflicts of interest?
Yeah, I am.
He answers to you.
Sure, he does. First of all, he wouldn't do it, and second of all, we're not going to let him do anything where there's a conflict of interest.
Mr. President, your negotiations with the EU are there's discussions ongoing already. How quickly do you expect that you'll hear back from them about any of these other measures? I can't tell you, yeah. The EU's been very nasty. It's just been, they haven't treated us properly. Look, we were great to them on NATO. Essentially, it's a similar group of countries. When I came in, my first term, I raised
their fees. I mean, they were not paying. We were paying for, in my opinion, almost all of NATO. And now, you know, I had the bad moment with the press where the press said, well, does this mean you won't protect them? And I said, I won't protect them if they're not paying. But because I said that, the Secretary General, as you know, said it was the greatest thing he's ever seen because the money came pouring in. But they don't treat us right on trade. They don't treat us right on the military either. I mean, if you look at Ukraine, we're in for probably $200 billion more than Europe. Why are we in for more than Europe? We're in for more than Europe. I mean, think of it, or NATO. I mean, let's call it NATO because Canada's in. By the way, Canada is just about the lowest payer. Also, you know, they shouldn't be. They are just about the lowest payer in NATO, in addition to everything else. So Canada's really been taken advantage of. And if they had to pay just something modestly fair, they wouldn't be able to succeed as a country. And that's why I feel they have to become a state. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is it your expectation that partners will offer major concessions and that you actually don't end up applying those tariffs?
No, I think that a lot of them will stay the same, and whatever they pay, I'll pay. I mean, we'll have a lot of them stay the same. I think some. Look, I heard as an example, EU lowered their tax on cars down to the exact same amount that they were much higher. They were approximately 5 times higher, and they lowered them down to the exact tax that we're charging. That took place like yesterday or the day before. Is that a correct statement? I think so, yeah.
Do you expect any exemptions or waivers?
I don't expect that, no. This is a simple system. I mean, there wouldn't be any. And in the case of Apple, I gave them a waiver, an exemption in my first term because Samsung was in South Korea, and Samsung didn't have to pay the tax because it was a tax on China, and Apple makes a lot of their product in China. So I did that because it wouldn't have been fair. But now this applies to everybody across the board. This is a much simpler way of doing it, much better way.
You had that major call yesterday with President Putin of Russia. President Zelensky responded today basically saying any agreements they won't accept unless they're made with Ukraine. Will Ukraine have a seat at that table for those negotiations?
Of course they would. I mean, they're part of it. We would have Ukraine, we'd have Russia, and we'll have other people involved too. A lot of people, a lot of forks in the a lot of forks in this game. I'll tell you what, this is a very interesting situation, but the Ukraine war has to end. The young people are being killed at levels that nobody's seen since World War II, and it's a ridiculous war, and it has to end. We had a good talk with President Putin. I had a good talk with President Zelensky, very good talk. And somebody said, oh, I should have called Zelensky first. I don't think so. I mean, we have to find out whether or not Russia wants to make a deal. I know that Zelensky wants to make a deal because he told me that. But I now know that Russia wants to make a deal.
Did you ask Secretary Hegseth to walk back his comments yesterday saying Ukraine won't join NATO and won't go back to pre-2014 borders because those are bargaining chips you could use?
No, I didn't. Somebody told me to, but I thought his comments were good yesterday, and they're probably good today. They're a little bit softer, perhaps, but I thought his comments yesterday were pretty accurate. I don't see any way that a country in Russia's position could allow them, just in their position, could allow them to join NATO. I don't see that happening. And long before President Putin, Russia was very strong on the fact that I believe that's the reason the war started. Because Biden went out and said that they could join NATO, and he shouldn't have said that. As soon as he said that, I said, you know what? You're going to have a war now, and I was right about that. This is a war that would have never happened if I were president.
But you don't think it's President Biden's fault, not President Putin? I mean, he's the one.
I think Biden is incompetent, and I think when he said that they could join NATO, I thought that was a very stupid thing to say. I thought when he said, well, it depends if it's a minor incursion. In other words, it's okay if Russia does a minor incursion. I thought that was a very foolish thing to say.
The
other thing that got it started was how badly Milley and these stupid people, the bad generals, how badly they did with Afghanistan. I was going to pull out, but we were pulling out with dignity and strength, and we were going to take our equipment with us and everything else. They are... I mean, what they're doing is, what they did with that, I think Putin looked at that mess and he said, wow, this is a great time, I'm going to go in. But what what the Americans said, I'm not blaming Americans, but I will say what they said had a big influence on his deciding to go in. Yeah.
When Elon Musk met with Prime Minister Modi earlier today, did he do so as an American CEO or did he do so as a representative of the U.S. government?
Are you talking about me?
No, Elon Musk.
Elon, I don't know. They met, and I assume he wants to do business in India. But India is a very hard place to do business in because of the tariffs. They have the highest tariffs just about in the world, and it's a hard place to do business. No, I would imagine he met possibly because he's running a company. He's doing this as something that he's felt strongly about for a long time because he sees what's happening and he sees how the country is really being hurt badly by all of the fraud, waste, and abuse. Yeah.
So how does Modi know whether he's meeting with the CEO or meeting with a representative of your government?
Well, he's meeting with me in a little while, so I'm going to ask him that question. All right? I'll ask him that question. Yeah.
On auto tariffs, what should we expect, sir? You mentioned obviously steel and aluminum and pharmaceuticals. What are you thinking about auto tariffs? We haven't talked about that much.
I think autos are coming soon. I think they're all coming more or less at the same time. And it's not going to be a big shock to the system. But what it's going to do is it's going to bring pharmaceuticals back to our country. Much more important than the money. It's a lot of money, but it's going to bring pharmaceuticals back to our country. It's going to bring chips back to our country. It's going to bring automobile. We're going to do a lot more automobile manufacturing in our country. When I did this, when I announced this during the campaign, they were going to build the largest car plant in the world in Mexico. It was almost under construction. It was just starting. And when they heard me make that statement, and they thought I was going to win the election, actually, it was a few months before the election itself, China was building the car plant. It was going to be the largest in the world. They immediately stopped construction. You can see the foundations there. They immediately stopped. When they heard I was doing this, that would have destroyed Detroit. It would have destroyed Michigan. This plant would have taken up more than almost the whole state built. And it would have been very destructive. When they heard me speak, and they said, wow, if he gets in, we're gonna lose our shirt. So they stopped building. That's the impact that tariffs have. Again, I say it, and I say it loudly. It's the most beautiful word, but now I say religion, love, and a couple of other things are more beautiful because I got in a lot of problem with the fake news when they said, oh, other things are more important. God is more important, but these are the words. But I would say it's number 4 or 5. To me, it's the most beautiful. And I'll tell you what, I think really reciprocal tariffs, those 2 words, reciprocal makes tariffs really fair.
There'd be no exemptions, right? It would be all auto imports?
Any exemptions, no, because you don't need to. With reciprocal, you don't need to.
Mr. President, Gavin Klager just arrived at the IRS.
Fox Radio. Do you have an update on the TikTok negotiations?
Yeah, we have a lot of people.
That timeline's running out, isn't it?
Well, I have 90 days from about 2 weeks ago, right? And I'm sure it can be extended, but let's see. I don't think you'll need to. We have a lot of people interested in TikTok. And I hope to be able to make a deal. I think it would be good. People have learned it's very popular. And we'll have to probably get approval from China to do it. But we have a lot of people that are interested, and a lot of people, I think China will be interested because it's to their benefit too. So I look forward to that. But we have a lot of people that are interested in TikTok, quite a few.
Mr. President, Doge workers arrived today, Gavin Klager and others arrived today at the IRS. Do you expect to close the IRS, or what are you expecting?
No, I don't expect it, but I think that the Internal Revenue Service will be looked at like everybody else. Just about everybody's going to be looked at. So it's they're doing a hell of a job. It's an amazing job they're doing. And that force is building these. I call it the force of super geniuses. But it's building. And, they go up and they talk to some of the people about certain deals, and the people get all tongue-tied. They can't talk because these people get it. They're very smart people. We need smart people. Yes. Brian?
On tariffs, sir.
Yeah, Brian?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, I know that during the campaign, it was huge in Pennsylvania as far as bringing back manufacturing. Have you talked to any CEOs since the tariffs were announced on steel and aluminum? What's the feedback from those guys?
They are in love with it. As you know, in Pennsylvania, U.S. Steel is through the roof. They're all through the roof. That's why I didn't want U.S. Steel to make a deal with Japan or anybody else. I think it's going to do great. But I think maybe more than anybody else, the steel companies and aluminum companies, they're in love with what's happened. And this will eventually be the car companies and chip companies. We have to have chips made in this country. Right now, everything's made in Taiwan practically, almost all of it, a little bit in South Korea. But everything, almost all of it is made in Taiwan. And we want it to be made. We want those companies to come to our country in all due respect. You know, they took the business away. Taiwan took our chip business away. We had Intel, we had these great companies that did so well, and it was taken from us, and we want that business back. We want it back in the United States. And if they don't bring it back, we're not going to be very happy.
And you
Sir, on
mentioned
tariffs, are you-
pharmaceuticals as well in China. That's national security to bring that back.
Yeah, China and other places. We want to get the pharmaceutical and drug business back into the United States, where it should be. Right?
Sir, on tariffs, are you concerned that the countries that would be most affected, like India, would just shift their trading to China?
No, I'm not concerned about anything, really. I mean, I'm just doing what's fair. This is a very fair thing. This should have been done a long time ago. I would have done it, but then COVID hit. I was getting ready to do this years ago, and first term we had the most successful economy in history, and then COVID hit, and this was going to be the thing that I was most waiting to do, but it was awfully hard to do this with Italy and France and Spain, and all those people were dying, and then we put tariffs on. See, I have a big heart.
Sir, on Ukraine, when Putin says that he really wants peace, do you believe him?
Yeah, I do. I believe he wants peace. I believe that President Putin, when I spoke to him yesterday, I mean, I know him very well. Yeah, I think he wants peace. I think he would tell me if he didn't. I'd like to see peace.
Do you trust President Putin?
I believe that, I believe that he would like to see something happen. I trust him on this subject. I think he'd like to see something happen. I think it could have happened a long time ago. I think Biden, number one, it shouldn't have started, but it did. And now all those cities are knocked down, like demolition sites. All those beautiful golden towers are knocked down. There's nothing going to replace them. But much more importantly, you lost millions of people. A lot of soldiers, but you lost millions of people. When they knocked down those cities, and they're all laying down on the side, they're laying down just in ashes and all crumbled up concrete. They literally look like a world-class demolition site. And many of them, almost all of them, but many of them, and this should have been done by Biden years ago. This should have never been allowed to happen. I know he's a friend of yours.
But couldn't Putin just withdraw his
He's a friend of
today?
CNN. That's why nobody watches CNN anymore, because they have no credibility. Okay, who else? Yes, please.
Sir, if you can find a buyer in the United States for TikTok, do you think Xi Jinping will authorize the sale of it, or will he?
I'm going to make it worthwhile for China to do it. I think so. I mean, I got to know TikTok because during the election, I ended up with 36% higher than my opponent with youth. Okay, that never happened before. That's always been a Democrat thing, youth. It became a Trump thing. And I think TikTok, I think Joe Rogan was a part of it. Some of the great people that I did interviews with were a part of it. But I think that TikTok was I think it was a big part. Look, as you know, we were up by 36% with youth. The Republican was never up with youth. And I focused on TikTok, and I found it to be amazing, actually, and very fair. And I think the image of TikTok is different than it was before the election. I think people saw it, and they view it as a positive, not a negative. I think it'll be to China's advantage to have the deal be made, yeah.
How much money do you think you'll raise from tariffs on an annual basis?
That's the most interesting question. I think it'll be a staggering amount. It will be the external, I call it the External Revenue Service. That was a name that was devised by a few of us, but I think it's going to be a staggering amount.
We've heard it's the number $1 trillion floated in meetings with senators. Is that a number you've thought of?
I don't know, but already the Senate's saying, well, wait a minute, they're looking at some of the numbers and they're saying, whoa, look, we want to, I say America first, I say make America great again. That's what we're doing. I think it's the most important thing I've signed. I've signed some very important things. Right to try was so important. I mean, a lot of important things. Space Force, the biggest tax cuts in history. This could be one of the most important things that we've ever signed.
Do you expect the Russians and President Putin to attend the summit in Saudi Arabia?
Eventually, yeah. Not quite yet. It's a little early. They're having a meeting in Munich tomorrow. Russia is going to be there with our people. Ukraine is also invited, by the way. Not sure exactly who's going to be there from any country, but high-level people from Russia, from Ukraine, and from the United States.
Do you want to have Russia back to the G7, sir?
I'd love to have them back. I think it was a mistake to throw them out. Look, it's not a question of liking Russia or not liking Russia. It was the G8, and you know, I said, what are you doing? You guys, all you talk about is Russia, and they should be sitting at the table. I think Putin would love to be back. Obama and a couple of other people made a mistake, and they got Russia out. It's very possible that if that was the G8, you wouldn't have had the problem with Ukraine. And if I was president, you definitely wouldn't have had the problem with Ukraine. Russia would have never attacked Ukraine. But you ask a very good question, the G8. It used to be the G8, and then these people threw them out. And I was arguing with Trudeau and with numerous of the people. Actually, Prime Minister Abe, a great man from Japan, agreed with me 100%, and some of the others did too. But I got there, it was the G7, as you know. They had already been terminated. I think it would have been very helpful, and it still would be helpful to have Russia be a part of that mix. And I think if they were, I don't think you would have had the problem that you have right now.
Russia is part of the G20. They kicked them out, of course, because they illegally annexed Crimea. I mean, how would you have responded if Russia invaded or took over?
They took Crimea during Obama.
2014.
They took, well, now they're looking to take the whole thing. Then they took a big chunk of land and people, as you know, during Bush. And now they're trying to take the whole thing during Biden. You know, the only one that didn't give them anything is Trump. They never took anything with Trump, nothing, not 2 inches of property of land. But Crimea was Obama. And then Bush gave him a lot, if you remember. And then, in fact, it's a sort of a standard little phrase. And Biden's giving him everything because this is a war that shouldn't have been had. And the only one that didn't give him anything is Trump. It's just the way it is.
What's your message from Wall Street about these tariffs? So there's been some nervousness on Wall Street about the impact.
So. I mean, there hasn't been very much. And I think it's going to make the United States stronger. And in many ways, it could make other countries stronger, too. You know, other countries want to have a strong United States. They want to have a strong America. And I think it's going to make us very, very strong, much stronger. And we have a lot of work we're doing on the military. Our military already, I've authorized some contracts to be built that are very substantial. We're building the greatest equipment in the world. We have the greatest military equipment in the world. We're building it. At some point, when things settle down, I'm going to meet with China. And I'm going to meet with Russia, in particular, those two. And I'm going to say, there's no reason for us to be spending almost $1 trillion on military. There's no reason for you to be spending $400 billion. China's going to be at $400 billion. We're at $1 trillion. We're going to be at close to $1 trillion. And I'm going to say, we can settle this on, we can spend this on other things. We don't have to spend this on military and I'm going to be meeting with China. You know, we were trying to de-escalate nuclear, and I was in a position where Russia had agreed and China had agreed we were going to start, and then we had a rigged election, so that never took place. But this one was too big to rig. We won by so much that it was too big to rig.
You want to do the China meeting in the United States, or would you travel to China for that?
For what?
A China meeting.
I tell people all the time, you know, the question is who's going to have the first meeting, where are you going to, I say this to Putin, to President Xi, I say to everybody, never bothered me, you know. I'm willing to say I'll go first. It doesn't matter. It's the end result that counts. So it doesn't make any difference.
When do you want to have a conversation about global defense spending, you, China,
Well,
Russia?
I'd like to have that. As soon as things settle down, I'm going to have that conference, primarily with China and Russia, because those are the two that really are out there. And we're going to have them spend a lot less money, and we're going to spend a lot less money. And I know they're going to do it. They agreed to it. We were talking about denuclearizing, and President Putin and I agreed that we were going to do it in a very big way. There's no reason for us to be building brand new nuclear weapons. We already have so many you could destroy the world 50 times over, 100 times over. And here we are building new nuclear weapons, and they're building nuclear weapons, and China's building new nuclear weapons, and China's trying to catch up because, you know, they're very substantially behind, but within 5 or 6 years, they'll be even. And we're all spending a lot of money that we could be spending on other things that are actually, hopefully, much more productive. Hopefully, there'll never be a time when we need those weapons. If there's ever a time when we need nuclear weapons, like the kind of weapons that we're building and that Russia has and that China has to a lesser extent, but will have, that's going to be a very sad day. That's going to be probably oblivion.
Do you see that as separate conversations, or do you see one giant summit with you, Xi Jinping, and Vladimir Putin?
Yeah, I could see that. Let things calm down a little bit. You know, when I left, we had no Middle East problem. We had no Russia going into Ukraine. They never would have done it. Putin never would have done it. And I came back and we got like the whole world is blowing up. So when we straighten it all out, then I want to have one of the first meetings I want to have is with President Xi of China, President Putin of Russia. And I want to say, let's cut our military budget in half. And we can do that. And I think we'll be able to do it.
If Elon Musk identifies wasteful spending in the Defense Department, defense contractors and the like, are you willing to go after that spending as well?
We have to go waste, fraud, and abuse. Yeah, and we're doing that.
Could we, you know, I'm just wondering about your conversations on defense spending. Would you want to do that as a trilateral, or would you use the existing body that also already includes China and Russia, the G20?
No, it's the people. It's President Putin, President Xi. I don't need bodies. I don't need anything. It's people. It's all about people. It's about relationship and people. And, you know, I've had a good relationship with President Putin. I've had a good relationship with President Xi. It's about people. And I think when things straighten out, which I hope will be in the not-too-distant future, the meeting I want to have first is a meeting with China and a meeting with Russia on slowing down, stopping, and reducing nuclear weapons in particular, and also on not having to spend the kind of money we're all spending on weapons, military weapons generally.
I think my question is, would you have those meetings separately with each of those leaders, or would you try to bring them all together?
Both. You start off separately, and that's what was happening. I was dealing with President Putin. We had really an understanding where we were going to denuclearize. What a beautiful term that is, right? Denuclearize. What a great thing if we could do that. And we were going to, he really liked the idea, and so did I. And we had then called China, and China was very open to it. And then COVID hit, and then we had a rigged election. But now there was no rigged election. Now we have an election that was too big to rig. That's what my whole theme was, too big to rig. And they tried, but they didn't pull it off.
Sir, as part of the reciprocal tariffs, would you also direct agencies to study the impact they would have on prices in the U.S.?
No, there's nothing to study. There's nothing to study. It's going to go well. The United States is going to become a very, very strong economically country. Yeah.
Mr. President, in the past you have spoken against BRICS. India is part of BRICS. Do you want to dismantle BRICS, or U.S. want to be part of it?
I don't care, but BRICS was put there for a bad purpose. And most of those people they don't even want to talk about it now. They're afraid to talk about it because I told them if they want to play games with the dollar, then they're going to be hit with a 100% tariff the day they mention that they want to do it. And they will come back and say, we beg you not to do this. BRICS is dead since I mentioned that. BRICS died the minute I mentioned that. And I remember when Obama and Biden in particular, I guess he said that, they have us over a barrel. They don't have us over a barrel. We have them over a barrel. If BRICS wants to play games, those countries won't trade with us. We won't trade with them. And if any trading gets through, it'll be 100% tariff at least.
On your
You know what? When they hear that, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to say, look what happened to BRICS. They didn't want to talk about it. They don't even want to admit that they were a member of BRICS. That's what's happened.
On your cabinet, sir, we saw Robert F. Kennedy Jr. get confirmed. He's going to come in here and be sworn in. Mitch McConnell has now voted against several of your nominees. He voted against RFK Jr. as the next health secretary, citing conspiracy theories. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I feel sorry for Mitch. And I was one of the people that led. He wanted to go to the end and he wanted to stay leader. He's not equipped mentally. He wasn't equipped 10 years ago mentally, in my opinion. He'd let the Republican Party go to hell. If I didn't come along, the Republican Party wouldn't even exist right now. Mitch McConnell never really had it. He had an ability to raise money because of his position as leader, which anybody could do. You could do it even, and that's saying a lot. But the fact is that he raised money and he gave a lot of money to senators, and so he had a little loyalty based on the fact that as leader you could raise a lot of money. Senators would call me and they say, he wants to give me 20, 25 million, can I take it? I'd say, take the money, take the money. But so he engendered a certain amount of, I don't even call it loyalty, he was able to get votes. But I was the one that got him to drop out of the leadership position, so he can't love me. But he's not voting against Bobby, he's voting against me, but that's all right. He endorsed me. Mitch, do you know that Mitch endorsed me, right?
Well, he did
you
have
think that was
polio.
easy? What?
He had polio, obviously, and his.
I don't know. I don't know anything about. He had polio. He had polio.
Are you doubting that he had polio?
I have no idea if he had polio. All I can tell you about him is that he shouldn't have been leader. He knows that. He voted against Bobby. He votes against almost everything now. He's a very bitter guy, and we have a very strong party. And he's almost not even really a very powerful member. I'd say he's not he's lost his power, and it's affected his vote. And it's one of those things. But in the meantime, Bobby did great, got more votes than anybody thought, and I think he's going to do phenomenally, just phenomenally in that position. And everybody else likewise did well. Not only well, they got more votes than anybody thought. Tulsi, look at how she did. She did great. Marco got 99 votes. How about that? And Marco got 99 votes. And Marco, by the way, I have to tell you, Marco Rubio's done a fantastic job. He's been a great Secretary of State. They're all doing great. But we're going to have a swearing in today, and maybe we're going to have a second one because I hear we have a couple of them coming up. And the man behind me is doing a fantastic job, Secretary of Commerce. And I think you're going to see something very big come from today's signing. This is going to be a very important signing. Okay?
On U.S. Steel, sir, can I ask very quickly? You said you'd meet with the head of that company and the Japanese company.
U.S. Steel is going to be here, and a lot of the steel companies are coming. I think steel companies, they love what's happening to them. We saved it. If I didn't do the tariffs from my first term, you wouldn't have one steel company here. You wouldn't have one steel. There wouldn't be a steel company alive in the United States. And right now, they're going to be thriving. They're doing very well, but they're going to be thriving. They're going to be coming out. People are going to want to buy those steel companies like crazy.
Are you still planning to mediate talks between Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel?
Yeah, I don't know. I think U.S. Steel right now has all the power. The tariffs have given U.S. Steel a new lease on life. Okay? Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and there we have it. President Donald Trump speaking with the press earlier today, right after signing that executive order on reciprocal tariffs. And coming back, before meeting with President Trump this afternoon, Indian Prime Minister Modi talked with Elon Musk in Washington, D.C. We'll have that story and much more in our next hour. Stay tuned.
Right now at Mathis Home, buy one Lazy Boy recliner, get the second one free. That's right, buy one recliner, get the matching recliner absolutely free. Recliner pairs start at just $7.99. It's your chance to save on the handcrafted quality and comfort that Lazy Boy is famous for. And get 2 great chairs for one low price. They're all in stock now with easy financing and fast free delivery. Buy one, get one free on Lazy Boy recliners, only at Mathis Home.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I had heard many times that heart disease is the #1 killer. It went in one ear and out the other, frankly. I never had a health issue. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. But a few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. By the time I got to the ER, the doctor decided to give me a CAT scan. He said, "I don't think you understand. You are on the verge of a heart attack." I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I received 2 stents in my arteries, stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. With you by our side, together we'll keep fighting this battle. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. Put yourself on your to-do list. It could be the most important thing you ever do. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did. So please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now. Join me as a monthly donor today and help save even more lives. Thank you.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
Thanks for staying with us. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting Washington, D.C. to meet with President Trump and his team. But before his meeting with Trump later this afternoon, Modi sat down with Elon Musk. Now, in a post on X, Modi said he had a very good meeting with Musk and, quote, "We discussed various issues, including those he is passionate about, such as space, mobility, technology, and innovation. I talked about India's efforts towards reform and furthering minimum government, maximum governance." Modi began his day meeting with National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and also sat down with Vivek Ramaswamy. The Indian leader is looking to improve relations with the U.S. and to avoid tariffs. His meeting with Trump is scheduled for 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Trump will be hosting a press conference with Modi at around 5 p.m. Eastern. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been confirmed as the next Secretary of Health and Human Services. This as Trump's pick for Education Secretary testified at a hearing that was interrupted by protests. NTD's Washington correspondent Luis Martinez reports.
Senator Mitch McConnell was the only Senate Republican who voted against the confirmation of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be the next Secretary of Health and Human Services. On Thursday, the Senate also confirmed Brooke Rollins to be the next Secretary of Agriculture, and Linda McMahon, Trump's pick to be the next Secretary of Education, faced a fiery hearing where she was interrupted repeatedly by protesters.
And appreciate that they're here. So, thank you, Chairman Cassidy, to make sure we can deliver for our education.
Thank you. I appreciate your responses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The committee will come to order.
Linda McMahon was pressed by Senate Democrats on how come she's asking senators for their support to confirm her to be the next Secretary of Education when President Trump has commented on wanting to abolish this department.
Do you agree? And let me just once again get your feelings on this, that if there is a movement to abolish the Department of Education, it has to go through the United States Congress?
Yes, it is set up by the United States Congress, and we work with Congress. It clearly cannot be shut down without it.
The Judiciary Committee also voted to advance the nomination of Kash Patel to be the next director for the FBI, and that's despite Senate Democrats delaying the vote that was initially scheduled for last week.
Follow the dots. It goes from the White House with Stephen Miller, the deputy to the president, to the acting Attorney General Beauvais, and the message is Kash Patel, KP, the initials, wants you to move faster in purging the ranks of the FBI.
And on the House side, the House's Budget Committee began the markup of a budget resolution to kickstart the reconciliation process. Conservative spending hawks have already alerted that they're against the proposal.
We're just playing games. We're going to make cuts and then give the money to the Pentagon. that's not making real cuts. They need to come to the table with some of us and make some serious offers and quit yielding to the war pimps over at the Pentagon.
Senate Republicans have warned House Republicans that they will not accept any reconciliation bill that does not make the Trump tax era cuts permanent. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
We've got some breaking news for you. A federal judge has extended a pause on the Trump administration's plan to put USAID workers on leave for another week. This is following a lawsuit by government employee unions. The pause will be in place until next Friday while the judge considers the lawsuit. U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols in Washington, D.C. said at a hearing that he was concerned about the safety of USAID workers stationed abroad. Government employee unions also asked for a broader and longer-term order halting Trump's cuts to USAID operations. The judge did not rule on their motion. The restructuring of USAID was up for discussion in the House today. NTD correspondent Jason Blair now joins us from the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Jason, this has been a somewhat contentious, if you will, issue. What do you have from today's hearing?
Hey, Fiona, yes, indeed. This has been a pretty fiercely debated topic. However, today during the House Foreign Affairs Committee, things remain pretty calm and civil with people making their case without things getting too heated. Now, one of the main arguments coming from the Democrat side is that what's going on with USAID under the Trump administration lacks legal standing. And then a lot of Republicans expressed shock with some of the things that DOJ has uncovered with USAID and expressed strong support with what's going on under the Trump administration. Here's some clips from opening statements from the committee chair and ranking member.
My colleagues to my left will say that I'm lying about these programs, and I know they damn well wish that I was lying. The programs that USAID and the State Department have spent money on are indefensible. They hurt America standing around the globe. And I think the fact is clear that America would have been better off if your money had been simply thrown into a fireplace.
The American people deserve to have their elected representatives question the administration about the decision to shut down a government agency established in law by Congress. We don't have a king. We have a system.
So during the hearing, some Republicans expressed praise for some of the things that USAID has done, but agree that things have gotten off track. They say things have gotten off track and it needs to be restructured, and agree with what's going on. For example, Rep. Moylan said that he hopes Secretary Rubio can keep what's good and basically change what's not working. And then some Democrats expressed concern that there are areas of the country that heavily rely on what some of the programs that USAID is doing, and if they suddenly get cut off, they will be left in need. And it will also might provide an opportunity for authoritarian countries like China and Russia to move into these areas and influence them instead of the U.S. Here are some clips earlier today from the reps. Have a look.
USAID has an important mission, and unfortunately, they have gone askew on that mission. Unfortunately, as we peel back the onion here, we're finding more and more that billions of dollars of taxpayer money are being misappropriated.
USAID, along with the State Department, has been one of our strongest mechanisms to secure the region and national security, and also build relationships throughout the entire world. In Haiti, we've seen huge support and huge forward movement when it comes to USAID providing an option for many children who are either forced to join the gangs or face starvation and their families dying. But USAID has stepped in and actually gave them an option, which is to eat and provide food.
So going back to the main argument coming from many of the Democrats, that saying basically that the president must go through Congress in order to pull funding from agencies like USAID. And then in response to that, the chair, Rep. Mast, said that there was a law passed in 2024 that gives the Secretary of State, currently Marco Rubio, the authority to basically expand or reduce agencies like USAID. Back to you, Fiona.
Jason Blair, thank you. And President Trump has helped secure the release of 3 inmates held in Belarus, including 1 American. The American requested that their name and identifying information be withheld from the public to protect their privacy. The other 2 freed prisoners have been identified as Alina Mashuk, detained during mass anti-government protests in Belarus in August 2020, and Andrei Konchenik, a journalist for Radio Free Europe's Belarus service. He was charged in 2022 with allegedly establishing an extremist group and sentenced to 6 years in prison after a 1-day trial. An exiled Belarusian opposition leader thanked the Trump administration for helping to secure the release of 3 political prisoners. Hamas said they plan to still release 3 Israeli hostages this weekend. That's after accusing Israel of violating the recent ceasefire agreement. Terror group Hamas earlier threatened to delay the release of the hostages from the Gaza Strip. A Hamas spokesperson said Hamas does not want to see the collapse of the ceasefire agreement. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned Hamas this week that if the hostages are not returned by Saturday, the fighting would continue. President Trump made 2 similar warnings. The January 19th ceasefire agreement halted 15 months of war. The parties are still in the first phase of the 3-phase ceasefire plan. Coming up, EPA head Lee Zeldin looks to cut billions in grants for climate initiatives. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund established under the Biden administration would be taking the blow. A flash flood watch is in effect for much of Southern California, with increased risks in burn scar areas. Evacuation warnings remain all across LA County. That and more after the break.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
I hear your SOS.
On streets across America, young people are homeless, abused, in danger. Covenant House is helping young people with nowhere else to turn, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month. You'll help provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. Homeless young people are afraid and alone. Your monthly donation right now will show them they are loved and safe.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Call or go online now and give just $19 a month. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the difference you're making in a young person's life. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org.
Well, Welcome back to Newsroom. Rising inflation is causing the cost of essentials to go up. Groceries and gasoline got more expensive last month, with egg prices at an all-time high. A dozen eggs cost an average of $4.95 in January, this according to the latest Consumer Price Index data. That is an all-time high, and it's expected to be getting worse. The ongoing bird flu outbreak has devastated poultry farms across the nation. The outbreak is causing a supply crunch. A spokesperson for Trader Joe's told the Epoch Times it's placing limits on egg purchases now. And Rosemary Farms, a family-owned business in California, is donating hundreds of thousands of eggs to victims and first responders of the LA wildfires. They said they are working with the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank and the nonprofit Gather for Good in order to donate around 270,000 eggs to residents. In addition, nearly 55,000 eggs will go to firefighters and first responders. This as eggs are reaching those record high prices in the U.S. following that bird flu outbreak. And moving on now, evacuation orders and warnings are in effect for burn zones all across the LA area. Southern California is bracing for its most powerful winter storm of the season. NTD's Christina Corona has the latest details.
The National Weather Service has issued a flash flood watch through Friday with heightened risk in burn scar areas from recent wildfires. The storm is expected to bring up to 3 inches of rain to some coastal and valley areas, with most places receiving between ½ an inch and an inch by Thursday morning. Evacuation warnings are in place across Los Angeles County, including Palisades, Mandeville Canyon, Sunset, Eaton, and Hearst burn scar areas until 2 p.m. Friday. While not mandatory, the LA Fire Department will issue specific evacuation orders if needed. For the latest evacuation orders, residents can visit lafd.org. Crews have installed nearly 120 miles of barriers across Southern California to manage rain runoff and keep debris from burn scars out of rivers and lakes. This includes 319,000 sandbags, over 240 fire engines, and 400 personnel deployed across 8 counties. Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna warned during a Wednesday news conference that residents should be ready to evacuate and anticipate being away from their homes if necessary.
Storms can bring sudden and severe conditions that make staying back home extremely risky. Do not take that chance. And remember, if you're ordered to leave, you may be gone for several days. I cannot stand up here and tell you you'll be gone for 12 hours, 24 hours. We don't know. It depends on the weather and the post-weather events that will impact your specific neighborhood.
Ahead of the storm, Mayor Karen Bass issued an emergency executive order to secure burn scar areas. Crews cleared debris from properties to prevent it from entering streets and waterways. The EPA paused hazardous material removal, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers scaled back debris removal operations in LA County on Thursday. Christina Corona, NTD News.
The head of the Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin, is seeking to rescind $20 billion in grants for climate projects. They were started by the Biden administration. Now, the EPA is seeking to end contracts from the Biden administration that would distribute $20 billion in grants to fund clean energy and transportation projects. The program is formally known as the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Established under the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, funding would go toward projects with a focus on disadvantaged communities. Zeldin posted on X that he would ask the Inspector General, Congress, and Justice Department to work with the agency to rescind the grant money. Zeldin also announced that he's canceling a $50 million grant to the Climate Justice Alliance. Zeldin pointed to the group's pro-Palestinian messaging on its website, which reads, quote, "Palestine is a climate justice issue." Moments ago, President Trump participated in the swearing-in ceremony of RFK Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services. Here's a look at that.
Across party lines, and he really worked very hard, and he had tremendous support, unbelievable support, and I think a lot of that support came my way when we decided to do a little merger, and it was really great, and it was very loyal, incredible people. They believe in him so strongly, because he's a fierce advocate for the health of our children and for the values of free speech, democracy, and peace. And people are going to be very impressed, I have no doubt. I've known him a long time. He's been a friend of mine a long time. Perhaps most importantly, though, Bobby created a nationwide movement made up of millions and millions of mothers and fathers and young people and concerned citizens of every background who want to end and this horrible chronic disease crisis that exists in America. He's absolutely committed to getting dangerous chemicals out of our environment and out of our food supply and getting the American people the facts and the answers that we deserve. After years in which our public health system has squandered the trust of our citizens, and they really have. They don't trust us. They don't trust anybody, frankly. They've gone through hell. There's no better person to lead our campaign of historic reforms and restore faith in American health care. And Bobby's going to do it. The United States spends more money in health than any other country on earth, but we're growing sicker every year. We're not as healthy as countries that spend just a fraction of what we spend, so there's something wrong. He's going to figure it out. In recent decades, we've seen staggering increases in cancer rates across all age demographics, including more than 40% increase in childhood cancer since 1975. Who can believe that? And an explosion in other chronic childhood illnesses. Not long ago, 1 in 10,000 people, children, had autism. Now it's 1 in 36. Think of that. 1 in 10,000. 1 in 10,000. Now it's 1 in 36. Who can believe that? There's something wrong. There's something wrong. And I think it's something that can be found out. In 2022, more than 40% of children had at least one chronic health condition, and today nearly 80% of young adults do not qualify for military service, in large part for health reasons. Think of that, 80%. Something is wrong, and that's why immediately after Bobby is sworn in, I will be signing an executive order establishing the President's Commission to Make America Healthy Again. We have some great people on that commission. Chaired by our new secretary, this groundbreaking commission will be charged with investigating what is causing the decades-long increase in chronic illness, reporting its findings, and delivering an action plan to the American people. And it's going to be a plan that people are really waiting to hear. Bobby, I want to thank you. You've gone through a lot. It's taken great courage. You've been amazing, actually. I'd call him and say, "You're going to be okay." And he said, "I know. I really do." He's really been supported amazingly by Cheryl and his family. And it was a very nasty group of people that were after him, but he was tougher and he was smarter than they are. And that's why he's here today. There are very few people that could have withstood the assault, but he was able to. So I just want to congratulate you, and we have a very special person here to swear you in, a man that I think has done just, I think he's just an amazing man. As you know, his name happens to be Gorsuch, and he's a member of the Supreme Court in extremely good standing. He's highly respected by everybody. And I didn't know, are you two friends or something? Or did this just happen to be the justice? Did this just happen to be the luck of the draw? What happened? Did you reach out? Well, you reached out to a very good man. So please, if you would, thank you very much.
This has to be done
I'll do
first.
this first. Sorry. I'm going to make this a good one, right? Okay, it's good so far. Good. It's a 10.
Over here, please.
left hand on the Bible and raise your right. I, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. I, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear that I will support.
Just saw there President Donald Trump speaking right before RFK Jr. got confirmed as health secretary. All right, when we come back, at least 28 injured after an attack in Germany. A man from Afghanistan allegedly drove a car into a crowd. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth joins a meeting with his NATO counterparts in Brussels. Hear more about his plan for the military alliance after the break.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowners insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
There's always a searching process for beauty. You know it when you see it.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth today joining a meeting with his NATO counterparts in Brussels. After their talks, Hegseth laid out what he told them and where American priorities lie. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has more on what the Defense Secretary is saying.
We must make NATO great again.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Thursday addressing the media after meeting his NATO counterparts. One big topic during the meeting was that Europe should pay for its own defense. Hegseth made the example of President Eisenhower, who in the beginning was a big supporter of NATO after World War II ended.
However, by the end of Eisenhower's presidency, even he was concerned that Europe was not shouldering enough of its own defense, nearly making, in Eisenhower's words, quote, a sucker out of Uncle Sam.
The Defense Secretary's comments come just one day after he told NATO that Ukraine won't be able to get its pre-2014 borders back. That's when Russia first annexed parts of Ukraine. On Thursday, Hegseth said this does not equal a concession to Russia or President Vladimir Putin.
It's a recognition of the hard power realities on the ground after a lot of investment and sacrifice, first by the Ukrainians and then by allies, and then a realization that a negotiated peace is going to be some sort of demarcation that neither side wants.
Also on Thursday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke with Poland's Prime Minister, saying they agreed that no negotiations with Putin can begin without a united position from Ukraine, Europe and the US. This comes after President Trump had a phone call with Putin before he had a phone call with Zelensky. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
At least 28 people were injured after an attack in Germany. A man from Afghanistan allegedly drove a car into a crowd earlier today. The attack took place in the city of Munich. This comes as the city prepares for a top-level security conference. Police later described the attack, while Germany's chancellor promised that no leniency will be there for the suspect.
After the perpetrator drove into the crowd, and it looked as if he was going to continue his journey, a shot was seemingly fired in the direction of the perpetrator or at the vehicle. Police escorts then overpowered the perpetrator.
Anyone who commits crimes in Germany will not only be severely punished and sent to prison, they must also expect that they will not be able to continue their stay in Germany. And that also applies to countries where it is very difficult to repatriate someone. That's why the government I lead has managed to resume and carry out repatriations to Afghanistan, despite the lack of diplomatic relations.
The 24-year-old Afghan asylum seeker allegedly drove into a crowd of around 1,500 people. The victims were at a rally by a German trade union. Security has been in sharp focus in Germany ahead of a federal election next week. The Munich Security Conference is also set to take place this weekend in the same city where today's attack took place. Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and others are all scheduled to attend. Coming up, the interim U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York resigns today after refusing to drop the corruption charges against Mayor Eric Adams. That and more in our next hour. Stay tuned.
Just like all of you, I had problems sleeping. I had tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. I'd flip-flop all night, use my arm for support, and fall asleep, or I'd wake up with a sore neck or maybe a headache. Well, quality sleep comes from keeping your neck straight at night. You have to fill in that space between your head and your bed. That's why I invented MyPillow. MyPillow's patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs, and it doesn't matter if you sleep on your back, stomach, side, or any combination of all three.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night, and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get Classic King MyPillows for only $19.98. Queen size just $18.98. Standard Classic MyPillows only $14.98. That's right, only $14.98. Plus all orders $75 or more ship absolutely free.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The walls surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Our stories today. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth joins a meeting with his NATO counterparts in Brussels. Why he says we have to make NATO great again. The Senate confirms Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Health Secretary and Brooke Rollins as Agriculture Secretary. Kash Patel also clears a major hurdle to be FBI Director. Republican lawmakers are hoping to see EV tax credits in the rearview mirror, introducing two new bills, one to cut off incentives and another to add a fee.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here. Evacuation orders and warnings are in effect for burn zones across the Los Angeles area. Southern California is bracing for its most powerful winter storm of the season. NTD's Christina Corona has the latest.
The National Weather Service has issued a flash flood watch through Friday with heightened risk in burn scar areas from recent wildfires. The storm is expected to bring up to 3 inches of rain to some coastal and valley areas, with most places receiving between half an inch and an inch by Thursday morning. Evacuation warnings are in place across Los Angeles County, including Palisades, Mandeville Canyon, Sunset, Eaton, and Hearst burn scar areas until 2 p.m. Friday. While not mandatory, the LA Fire Department will issue specific evacuation orders if needed. For the latest evacuation orders, residents can visit lafd.org. Crews have installed nearly 120 miles of barriers across Southern California to manage rain runoff and keep debris from burn scars out of rivers and lakes. This includes 319,000 sandbags, over 240 fire engines, and 400 personnel deployed across 8 counties. Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna warned during a Wednesday news conference that residents should be ready to evacuate and anticipate being away from their homes if necessary.
Storms can bring sudden and severe conditions that make staying back home extremely risky. Do not take that chance. And remember, if you're ordered to leave, you may be gone for several days. I cannot stand up here and tell you you'll be gone for 12 hours, 24 hours. We don't know. It depends on the weather and the post-weather events that will impact your specific neighborhood.
Ahead of the storm, Mayor Karen Bass issued an emergency executive order to secure burn scar areas. Crews cleared debris from properties to prevent it from entering streets and waterways. The EPA paused hazardous material removal, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers scaled back debris removal operations in LA County on Thursday. Christina Corona, NTD News.
The interim U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York resigned today after refusing to drop the corruption charges against Mayor Eric Adams. Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove said in a memo on Monday that the case should be dismissed as soon as practicable. But days went with no public statements or actions by the prosecution team in New York. Bove said in the memo that the timing of the charges increased prejudicial pretrial publicity, and the pending prosecution blocked the mayor from focusing on illegal immigration. The dismissal is to be without prejudice, which means the case can be reviewed again at a later date. President Trump has helped secure the release of 3 inmates held in Belarus, including 1 American. The American requested their name and identifying information be withheld from the public to protect their privacy. The other 2 freed prisoners have been identified as Elena, detained during mass anti-government protests in Belarus in August 2020, and Andrei, a journalist for Radio Free Europe's Belarus service. He was charged in 2022 with allegedly establishing an extremist group and sentenced to 6 years in prison after a 1-day trial. An exiled Belarusian opposition leader thanked the Trump administration for helping secure the release of 3 political prisoners. Hamas said they plan to still release 3 Israeli hostages this weekend. That's after accusing Israel of violating the recent ceasefire agreement. Terror group Hamas earlier threatened to delay the release of the hostages from the Gaza Strip. A Hamas spokesperson said Hamas does not want to see the collapse of the ceasefire agreement. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned Hamas this week that if the hostages are not returned by Saturday, the fighting would continue. President Trump made 2 similar warnings. The January 19th ceasefire agreement halted 15 months of war. The parties are still in the first phase of the 3-phase ceasefire plan. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is set to become the next health secretary of the United States. He just secured enough Senate votes to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. The final vote was 52 to 48. The only Republican to vote no was Senator Mitch McConnell. He said in a statement that as a survivor of childhood polio, he did not condone someone who erodes trust in proven vaccines. McConnell also voted against the confirmations of Tulsi Gabbard for National Director of Intelligence and Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary. Some Republicans have expressed concerns about Kennedy's views on vaccines, but ultimately voted for him, including Senators Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Bill Cassidy, a medical doctor. Kennedy says he'll prioritize combating chronic diseases. He aims to do so by addressing the so-called corporate capture of federal health agencies and removing toxic chemicals from the nation's food supply. As HHS Secretary, Kennedy will oversee the FDA, the CDC, and the NIH. Another major update on Trump's cabinet picks. The Senate Judiciary Committee voted today to advance Kash Patel's nomination to lead the FBI. Lawmakers voted 12 to 10 along party lines. Democrats on the Judiciary Committee delayed Patel's vote last week after his first confirmation hearing. That was after he testified before the committee for 5 hours. Senator Dick Durbin accused Patel of directing a purge of the FBI before being officially confirmed as director. Patel's team denied the claim and said he has been patiently waiting for the confirmation process to play out. Patel says he aims to restore integrity, accountability, and equal justice to the justice system. He is likely to be considered by the full Senate as early as next week. Trump's pick for Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, was confirmed today. The Senate pushed her nomination through a 72 to 28 vote. Rollins will now lead a department tasked with overseeing nearly all aspects of the nation's food system. Her duties will include setting standards for farming practices, livestock rearing, federal subsidies, and nutrition for schools nationwide. The United States is the world's largest food exporter. Rollins most recently served as president and CEO of the America First Policy Institute. She also served as acting director of the White House Domestic Policy Council during Trump's first term. The new Agriculture Secretary promised to modernize the USDA to accelerate disaster aid for farmers and tackle animal diseases. Trump's old lawsuit against Twitter finally settled by its new owner Elon Musk 4 years after Trump was kicked off the platform. Stay tuned for that.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
Where did the time go? So
Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. Or how did I get here? I can see now.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
Yeah, so there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
And in today's Business Matters, cutting the brakes on EV tax breaks. U.S. Republican senators have proposed a pair of bills targeting EVs. They want to get rid of a $7,500 electric vehicle tax credit on new vehicles, as well as credits for used and leased EVs and federal investments for charging stations. They also want to add a $1,000 tax on EVs. Lawmakers say this is roughly the same as what drivers pay in federal gas taxes over 10 years for highway funds to pay for road repairs. Detroit lawmakers, automakers that is, are pushing to retain the credits or at least see them phased out. That's because car makers have invested billions in EV and battery production. Elon Musk says he will drop his nearly $100 billion attempt to buy OpenAI if it maintains its nonprofit structure. OpenAI is the maker of ChatGPT and the world's most valuable AI company. It currently operates as a nonprofit. On Monday, Musk announced he's leading a group of investors, and this is who have offered to buy OpenAI for more than $97 billion. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman criticized the offer publicly. In a court filing yesterday, the company questioned Musk's rationale for the bid, but hasn't yet rejected it. The recent developments are part of a battle between Musk and Altman for control of the future of artificial intelligence. Now, Musk was a co-founder of OpenAI, but eventually left the company. Rosemary Farms, a family-owned business in California, is donating hundreds of thousands of eggs to victims and first responders of the LA wildfires. They say they're working with the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank and the nonprofit Gather for Good to donate around 270,000 eggs to residents. In addition, nearly 55,000 eggs will go to firefighters and first responders. This as eggs are reaching record high prices in the U.S. following a nationwide bird flu outbreak. JCPenney will be closing 8 locations by the middle of the year. A spokesperson for the company said this is because of expiring leases and market changes. The retailer said this is not related to its merger with Spark Group, which was announced last month. A company that handles liquidation sales says the impacted stores are in the following states, including California, Colorado, Idaho, Kansas, Maryland, North Carolina, New Hampshire, and West Virginia. Users and shares drop. Reddit is in the red after missing Wall Street estimates for daily active unique visitors in the fourth quarter. The social platform also reported a decline in user growth. This overshadowed the company's upbeat fourth quarter revenue and better than expected revenue forecast for the first quarter. One expert said Reddit was hit by a change in Google's search algorithm, which favors AI-generated summaries. Reddit CEO told reporters, or shareholders that is, the platform has experienced some volatility with Google search, but he said that search traffic has recovered so far in the first quarter. Honda and Nissan will be taking different routes as they exit merger talks. In December, the two said that they and Mitsubishi were in talks to form the world's third largest automaker by sales. Honda and Nissan said today those talks were ending. Honda's chief executive said he was disappointed and felt the potential was great, but knew that it would require painful actions. Nissan CEO said Nissan would not realize its potential in the deal and chose not to accept it. The automaker said they plan to continue collaborating on electric vehicles and smart car technology like autonomous driving. And the economic situation, that is getting even worse in China, according to the country's central bank. The People's Bank of China says in a report that adverse effects caused by changes in the external environment have deepened. Reports add that weak domestic spending remains a problem. This amid numerous other issues. The central bank said today it would adjust its monetary policy to support the economy in light of rising external headwinds. One of the things it will do is to keep the money supply at an appropriate level. Chinese policymakers have rolled out a blitz of stimulus measures since September, including interest rate cuts, cash injections, and steps to tackle the hidden debt of local governments. The Chinese economy is currently facing deflationary pressures as well and other obstacles to its already stuttering growth. Meanwhile, Nestle reported slightly better than expected annual sales growth, but the world's largest packaged food company warned of a narrowing profit margin in 2025. Here's more.
Nestle reported slightly better than expected annual sales growth on Thursday, driven by price increases. Though the world's largest packaged food company warned of a narrower profit margin in 2025. It's trying to grow sales volumes while also investing in innovation and restoring investor confidence under new CEO Laurent Frex. Years of soaring prices alienated shoppers and ate into its marketing budget. Nestle forecasts that 2025 full-year organic sales would be higher than last year. But the maker of Nescafé coffee forecast an underlying trading operating profit margin of 16% or more, down from 17.2% last year. While two of Nestlé's most important commodities, coffee for Nescafé and cocoa for Kit Kats, are at record high prices, it said it would only pass on some cost increases to shoppers. Shares in the company were up nearly 6% in early trade. Nestlé's competitors, including Unilever, slowed price increases last year to win back shoppers who had turned to cheaper products. The Swiss company, however, did not ease as quickly, and several quarters of weak sales volumes led to the removal of former CEO Mark Schneider. Organic sales rose 2.2% in the full year ending December the 31st. Net profit fell 2.9% to $11.9 billion.
And wholesale inflation in the U.S. stayed high last month, signaling even higher prices could be ahead for American shoppers. The Producer Price Index measures average price changes seen by producers and manufacturers. Economists were expecting producer-level prices to slow on an annual basis. But the PPI was up 3.5% in January compared to a year earlier. The index is holding at its highest annual rate since February 2023. The overall PPI was pushed higher by fast rising food prices and as well as energy prices. That included a 44% jump in wholesale level egg prices in January. Now, excluding food and energy, core PPI slowed down slightly in January. YouTube TV now has fewer viewing options for its customers. Several of Paramount Global's channels, including Comedy Central and CBS, have been taken off YouTube TV. This comes after the two companies weren't able to reach a new contract. YouTube TV released a statement saying it's working to reach an agreement with Paramount. According to a statement from Paramount, YouTube TV is pushing for a deal that is, quote, unfavorable and one-sided. YouTube TV subscribers will be able to get an $8 credit if Paramount's products are blacked out for an extended period. Now, Apple is often known for products that are hard to use with Android devices, but since entering the entertainment industry, the company has been making changes. The Apple TV app is now available on Android phones. Apple has also resumed its advertising on X. NTD Sean Marshall has the details.
The Apple TV app is now available to download from Google Play onto Android mobile devices, including phones, tablets, and some foldables, according to an Apple press release. Apple says its TV app for Android was built from the ground up to deliver Android users a familiar and intuitive interface. Apple TV Plus also offers a 7-day free trial. Android users can subscribe to Apple TV Plus and Major League Soccer Season Pass using their Google Play account on Android mobile and Google TV devices. All 30 MLS clubs will be in action as the league kicks off its 30th season the weekend of February 22nd. Apple TV Plus also offers Friday Night Baseball, a weekly Major League Baseball doubleheader with no local broadcast restrictions. To add to their changes, Apple has quietly resumed advertising on the X app. It's been over a year since Apple halted its ads on X. Apple is not among the companies X is suing over what it describes as an illegal boycott designed to collectively withhold billions of dollars in advertising revenue from the company. Following its launch on November 1st, 2019, Apple TV Plus became the first all-original streaming service to launch around the world. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
And Denny's is closing more restaurants than originally planned. Last year, the restaurant chain announced it was shutting down 150 locations. But in an earnings release Wednesday, the company revealed it closed 88 locations last year and will shutter between 70 and 90 locations this year. That brings the figure closer to 180 closures. Denny said some of the diners closing have expiring leases or are in areas that have become unprofitable. The closures are part of the struggling diner chain's plans to jumpstart growth. Denny's has about 1,300 locations across the United States. Initial jobless claims in the U.S. dipped last week, indicating stability in the labor market. Department of Labor data released Thursday showed there were roughly 213,000 initial claims filed. That's down 7,000 from a week earlier. Continuing claims, which are filed by people who have received 1 week or more of benefits, it dropped to 1.85 million. And that was a decline of 36,000 claims. Eyewear maker Elsilor will be boosting production as it's been cleared by the FDA for its over-the-counter nuanced audio glasses. The glasses combine vision correction with an open ear hearing solution. It's the first preset software as a medical device cleared by the FDA. In fact, it created a new category in medical technology. Elsilor Luxottica also earned a CE safety marking under the EU medical device regulations. The company, which has been collaborating with Meta on its Ray-Ban branded smart glasses, said it's expanding production capacity. It hopes to reach 10 million units annually by next year. Crossing into enemy territory, Meta will now allow rival classified ads on its Facebook marketplace. The European Commission found the tech giant breached antitrust rules by imposing unfair trade conditions on its rivals. Meta was hit with an $828 million fine for giving its own service an unfair advantage. In response, Meta has launched the Facebook Marketplace Partner Program. This will allow third-party partners, especially online classified ad service providers like eBay, to list their consumer-to-consumer items on Facebook Marketplace. President Trump has added another item to his list of responsibilities. He was elected chair of the Kennedy Center's Board of Trustees. Trump posted on Truth Social that it's a great honor and that he and the Board of Trustees will make the Kennedy Center, quote, a very special and exciting place. The Kennedy Center presents more than 2,000 performing art shows and events every year. Trump's old lawsuit against Twitter has finally been settled by its new owner, Elon Musk. The platform had kicked Trump off because of January 6. Here's a walk down memory lane.
Trump's old lawsuit against Twitter has been settled by its new owner, Elon Musk.
Everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will.
After the events on January 6th at the Capitol, Twitter CEO Dorsey kicked then-President Trump off the platform. He said Twitter was forced to focus its actions on public safety. Trump sued Twitter in July, saying it violated his First Amendment rights. In May next year, a judge threw out the lawsuit. Judge James Donato, an Obama appointee, said the First Amendment doesn't apply to private firms. The First Amendment says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Trump appealed. Elon Musk bought Twitter, changed its name to X, reinstated Trump, and has finally now settled the suit. Anonymous sources told CBS the settlement was $10 million.
Actress Scarlett Johansson called on lawmakers Wednesday to take action and protect Americans against dangers of artificial intelligence. In a statement, Johansson urged the U.S. government to pass legislation limiting the use of AI. This comes after a deepfake video of Johansson and other celebrities was widely circulated on social media this week. The AI video implied the celebs were responding to recent anti-Semitic remarks from Kanye West. Johansson condemned anti-Semitism, but emphasized that it was important to call out the misuse of AI regardless of the messaging. The actress said she is a public victim of AI, but the threat affects all of us. Johansson's statement went on to say this is a bipartisan issue that should be a top priority for elected officials. Okay, on to markets. S&P 500 ended higher today, and it was lifted by gains in NVIDIA and as well as Apple and Tesla. And this all coming after U.S. President Donald Trump unveiled a roadmap for charging reciprocal tariffs on U.S. trading partners. Now, stocks also gained after data showing U.S. producer prices increased in January. The number of Americans filing for new applications for unemployment benefits decreased last week. This is according to another report. Now, Chevron shares rose after the oil heavyweight said it will lay off up to 20% of its global workforce by the end of 2026. And that is it on today's Business Matters. Coming up, EPA head Lee Zeldin looks to cut billions in grants for climate initiatives. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund established under the Biden administration will take the blow. Stay tuned for that.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
(911), where's your emergency?
Thanks for staying with us. The head of the Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin, is seeking to rescind $20 billion in grants for climate projects. They were started by the Biden administration. The EPA is seeking to end contracts from the Biden administration that would distribute $20 billion in grants to fund clean energy and transportation projects. The program is formally known as the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, established under the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act. Funding will go toward projects with a focus on disadvantaged communities. Zeldin posted on X that he would ask the Inspector General, Congress, and Justice Department to work with the agency to rescind the grant money. Zeldin also announced that he's canceling a $50 million grant to the Climate Justice Alliance. Zeldin pointed to the group's pro-Palestinian messaging on its website, which reads, "Palestine is a climate justice issue." Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro sued the Trump administration today, saying that withholding billions in federal money from the state is unconstitutional. Shapiro's lawyers suggested that agencies continue to ignore court orders to restore access to the suspended funds. The federal agencies named as defendants include the White House Office of Management and Budget, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Departments of Energy, Interior, and Transportation. The Trump administration issued an order in late January freezing federal grants and loans. A judge ordered the administration on Monday to unfreeze all of the funds for a second time. Shapiro's lawyers argue the pause violates the Constitution's spending clause. The Trump administration said the freeze was necessary to review whether spending aligned with the president's executive orders. And in Europe, the new information about the U.S. aid funding foreign media outlets has sparked strong reactions. Some voices claim these funds constitute foreign interference and have called for clarification. NTD's international correspondent David Vivez reports from Paris.
Recent revelations from Elon Musk about U.S. aid funding foreign media outlets fueled strong reactions in Europe. The Department of Government Efficiency mentioned the use of U.S. taxpayers' money to media outlets such as Politico. Other media such as the BBC and AFP have been accused of receiving funding. For example, according to the U.S. government website USA Spending, media news agency Agence France Presse received $447,000 in 2024. Some voices, including members of the EU Parliament and leaders in the EU, argue that USAID's media funding could be considered foreign interference.
Thanks to Donald Trump, we learned that the BBC is funded not only by the Americans, but also by Brussels. £1.3 million in 2023, a figure that remained invisible in the Commission's financial transparency system.
However, some fact-checkers claim that USAID's funding should not automatically be labeled as foreign interference. Publisher of media outlet Omerta, Régis Le Sommier, said that some claims of media interference might be unjustified.
When it comes to the BBC, for instance, when you dig a little bit inside the story, then you find that it's a BBC-held charity that was found and that was having a project in India. So directly involved in humanitarian help, and not at all about influencing the BBC for let's say, pro-US topics or stuff
In
like
Eastern Europe, Doge's finding about media outlets also sparked reactions. In this Budapest newsroom, editorialists discussed how they might raise money to continue their work.
Eastern and Central Europe were one of the main regions where grants were sent from the USA. That's what we know for sure. So we will have to wait and see how many media will go public with the fact that they are not receiving grants anymore.
Le Sommier said more clarification from the Department of Government Efficiency would be needed to properly address the situation.
There's so many information, so much information display that it's being picked. You know, everybody is cherry picking the info and turning it the way he wants or she wants. And that's doesn't help clarifying the real outcome of U.S. aid.
David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
An American aircraft carrier collided with a merchant vessel today near Port Said, Egypt. The Navy said the USS Harry S. Truman was the ship involved in the collision. The Truman is almost as long as the Empire State Building is tall, with a 5,000-member crew. Authorities said there were no injuries, flooding, or damage to the carrier's propulsion systems. None of the crew on the merchant ship were injured either. The Norfolk, Virginia-based Truman deployed in September to the Mediterranean and the Middle East. The carrier had just completed a port call in Suda Bay, Greece. While collisions involving U.S. Navy vessels are rare, 2 warships in the Asia-Pacific were involved in crashes in 2017. 17 sailors were killed. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth today joining a meeting with his NATO counterparts in Brussels. After their talks, Hegseth laid out what he told them and where American priorities lie. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pastor has what the Defense Secretary is saying.
We must make NATO great again.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Thursday addressing the media after meeting his NATO counterparts. One big topic during the meeting was that Europe should pay for its own defense. Hegseth made the example of President Eisenhower, who in the beginning was a big supporter of NATO after World War II ended.
However, by the end of Eisenhower's presidency, even he was concerned that Europe was not shouldering enough of its own defense, nearly making, in Eisenhower's words, quote, a sucker out of Uncle Sam.
The Defense Secretary's comments come just one day after he told NATO that Ukraine won't be able to get its pre-2014 borders back. That's when Russia first annexed parts of Ukraine. On Thursday, Hegseth said this does not equal a concession to Russia or President Vladimir Putin.
It's a recognition of the hard power realities on the ground after a lot of investment and sacrifice, first by the Ukrainians and then by allies, and then a realization that a negotiated peace is going to be some sort of demarcation that neither side wants.
Also on Thursday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke with Poland's Prime Minister, saying they agreed that no negotiations with Putin can begin without a united position from Ukraine, Europe and the US. This comes after President Trump had a phone call with Putin before he had a phone call with Zelensky. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
At least 28 people were injured after an attack in Germany. A man from Afghanistan allegedly drove a car into a crowd earlier today. The attack took place in the city of Munich. This comes as the city prepares for a top-level security conference. Police later described the attack, while Germany's chancellor promised no leniency for the suspect. Listen.
After the perpetrator drove into the crowd, and it looked as if he was going to continue his journey, a shot was seemingly fired in the direction of the perpetrator or at the vehicle. Police escorts then overpowered the perpetrator.
Anyone who commits crimes in Germany will not only be severely punished and sent to prison, they must also expect that they will not be able to continue their stay in Germany. And that also applies to countries where it is very difficult to repatriate someone. That's why the government I lead has managed to resume and carry out repatriations to Afghanistan, despite the lack of diplomatic relations.
The 24-year-old Afghan asylum seeker allegedly drove into a crowd of around 1,500 people. The victims were at a rally by a German trade union. Security has been sharp in focus in Germany ahead of a federal election next week. The Munich Security Conference is also set to take place this weekend in the same city where today's attack took place. Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and others are scheduled to attend. Next, moving on to the South China Sea, Australia raised concerns with Beijing earlier today over an air dispute above the waters. 2 days ago, China flew a fighter jet toward Australia's military aircraft while it was conducting a routine patrol over the South China Sea. Australia's defense minister said the patrol was conducted over international waters, adding that the Chinese fighter jet released flares near the Australian aircraft, almost hitting it. Australia's defense minister described China's move as unsafe and unprofessional, adding the department has already raised concerns with Canberra and Beijing. In response, a spokesperson for China's foreign ministry accused Australia of intruding on China's airspace. China claims almost the entire South China Sea as its own, but a 2016 international arbitration ruled that invalid. Countries passing through the waters face frequent harassment from Chinese troops. The State Department views China's claims and what it calls a campaign of bullying as unlawful. Thailand has received 260 human trafficking victims, more than half of them Ethiopians from Myanmar, its army said today, in a massive repatriation that comes amid a mounting crackdown on scam centers operating along a porous border. Here's more.
This large group of trafficking victims was seen crossing a river from Myanmar to Thailand on Wednesday as part of a huge crackdown on scam centres operating along the porous border. They were handed over by Myanmar ethnic armed group, the DKBA. Once over the border, they were supervised by the Thai army and directed into army vehicles. According to the United Nations, criminal gangs have trafficked hundreds of thousands of people, forcing them to work in illegal online operations, generating billions annually across Southeast Asia. The problem is rife along the Thai-Myanmar border. Another group of over 260 people from different nationalities were handed over to Thailand, its army said on Thursday. More than 20 nationalities were represented, with more than half of the trafficking victims Ethiopian. The issue was thrown into the spotlight after Chinese actor Wang Jing was abducted after arriving in Thailand last month. He was later freed by Thai police, who found him in Myanmar. Thailand last week cut electricity, internet and fuel supplies to 5 border areas in Myanmar to step up efforts to choke the growing scam centres.
Coming up after the break, with only one Republican defector, the Senate confirms RFK Jr. to be the next Secretary of Health and Human Services. Stay tuned.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Come to Mathis Home today and save big during our presidential savings event with markdowns in every department. We've got all the latest looks for every room in your house at incredible savings. Get huge discounts on hundreds of sofas in all the latest styles. Or shop online and find an unbeatable selection of over 230,000 items. We've got it all. For great quality, all the latest styles, and best value, come to the presidential savings event at Mathis Home.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week. Still couldn't pay the bills. Skip meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. You know, I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 children face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive. And they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for families across America.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, there's a meeting at the pantry. I said, okay. And I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger, from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
Welcome back. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is confirmed as the next Secretary of Health and Human Services. This as Trump's pick for Education Secretary testifies as a hearing interrupted by protests. NTD's Washington correspondent Luis Martinez brings us more.
Senator Mitch McConnell was the only Senate Republican who voted against the confirmation of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be the next Secretary of Health and Human Services. On Thursday, the Senate also confirmed Brooke Rollins to be the next Secretary of Agriculture, and Linda McMahon, Trump's pick to be the next Secretary of Education, faced a fiery hearing where she was interrupted repeatedly by protesters.
And appreciate that they're here. So, thank you, Chairman Cassidy, to make sure we can deliver for our education.
Thank you. I appreciate your responses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The committee will come to order.
Linda McMahon was pressed by Senate Democrats on how come she's asking senators for their support to confirm her to be the next Secretary of Education when President Trump has commented on wanting to abolish this department.
Do you agree? Let me just once again get your feelings on this. That if there is a movement to abolish the Department of Education, it has to go through the United States Congress.
Yes, it is set up by the United States Congress, and we work with Congress. It clearly cannot be shut down without it.
The Judiciary Committee also voted to advance the nomination of Kash Patel to be the next director for the FBI, and that's despite Senate Democrats delaying the vote that was initially scheduled for last week.
Follow the dots. Goes from the White House with Stephen Miller, the deputy to the president, to the acting Attorney General Beauvais, and the message is Kash Patel, KP, the initials, wants you to move faster in purging the ranks of the FBI.
And on the House side, the House's Budget Committee began the markup of a budget resolution to kickstart the reconciliation process. Conservative spending hawks have already alerted that they're against the proposal.
We're just playing games. We're going to make cuts and then give the money to the Pentagon. That's not making real cuts. They need to come to the table with some of us and make some serious offers and quit yielding to the war pimps over at the Pentagon.
Senate Republicans have warned House Republicans that they will not accept any reconciliation bill that does not make the Trump tax era cuts permanent. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
A federal judge has extended a pause on the Trump administration's plan to put USAID workers on leave for another week. This is following a lawsuit by government employee unions. The pause will be in place until next Friday while the judge considers the lawsuit. U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols in Washington, D.C. said at a hearing he was concerned about the safety at USAID workers stationed abroad. Employee of the government unions also asked for a broader and longer-term order halting Trump's cuts to USAID operations. The judge did not rule on their motion. The restructuring of USAID was up for discussion today in the House. NTD correspondent Jason Blair brings us more.
This has been a pretty fiercely debated topic. However, today during the House Foreign Affairs Committee, things remain pretty calm and civil with people making their case without things getting too heated. Now, one of the main arguments coming from the Democrat side is that what's going on with USAID under the Trump administration lacks legal standing. And then A lot of Republicans expressed shock with some of the things that DOJ has uncovered with USAID and expressed strong support with what's going on under the Trump administration. Here's some clips from opening statements from the committee chair and ranking member.
My colleagues to my left will say that I'm lying about these programs, and I know they damn well wish that I was lying. The programs that USAID and the State Department have spent money on are indefensible. They hurt America's standing around the globe. And I think the fact is clear that America would have been better off if your money had been simply thrown into a fireplace.
The American people deserve to have their elected representatives question the administration about the decision to shut down a government agency established in law by Congress. We don't have a king. We have a system.
So during the hearing, some Republicans expressed praise for some of the things that USAID has done, but agree that things have gotten off track. They say things have gotten off track and it needs to be restructured, and agree with what's going on. For example, Rep. Moylan said that he hopes Secretary Rubio can keep what's good and basically change what's not working. And then some Democrats expressed concern that there are areas of the country that heavily rely on what some of the programs that USAID is doing, and if they suddenly get cut off, they will be left in need. And it will also might provide an opportunity for authoritarian countries like China and Russia to move into these areas and influence them instead of the U.S. Here are some clips earlier today from the reps. Have a look.
USAID has an important mission, and unfortunately, they have gone askew on that mission. Unfortunately, as we peel back the onion here, we're finding more and more that billions of dollars of taxpayer money are being misappropriated.
USAID, along with the State Department, has been one of our strongest mechanisms to secure the region and national security, and also build relationships throughout the entire world. In Haiti, we've seen huge support and huge forward movement when it comes to USAID providing an option for many children who are either forced to join the gangs or face starvation and their families dying. But USAID has stepped in and actually gave them an option, which is to eat and provide food.
So going back to the main argument coming from many of the Democrats, that saying basically that the president must go through Congress in order to pull funding from agencies like USAID. And then in response to that, the chair, Rep. Mast, said that there was a law passed in 2024 that gives the Secretary of State, currently Marco Rubio, the authority to basically expand or reduce agencies like USAID.
A new video from the Utah Transit Authority captures the moment a train hits an SUV. The accident happened last week in Layton, Utah. The SUV was pushed onto the tracks by a pickup truck. One angle shows the train conductor's perspective at the moment the locomotive strikes the stranded SUV. Another view was filmed from behind the crossing. It captures the train reaction leading up to the crash as warning lights flashed at the crossing. A white SUV came to a stop but was rear-ended by a pickup truck, forcing it onto the tracks. The driver attempted to reverse under the crossing arms but appeared to stall and exited the vehicle just before impact. According to local media, no injuries were reported. As Valentine's Day nears, Ecuadorian flower farmers are hustling to meet export demands from the United States and Europe. February 14th will mark one of the busiest days for the floral industry. Let's take a look at the preparations.
Workers at Sacha Rose are busy picking and packaging top-quality Ecuadorian roses destined for Valentine's Day celebrations. In the capital, Quito, floriculturist Felipe Bustamante says his country provides the world with top-notch flowers.
Definitely the Ecuadorian rose is the best in the world. I say so for the size it has, for the length of its stem, and for the size of its head. It is the largest in the world, and that is because it has grown several meters above sea level.
According to the Ministry of Production, Foreign Trade, Investments and Fisheries, flowers are among Ecuador's main exports. Valentine's Day tests the nation's florists and cargo services every year.
This is the peak season for cargo movement due to the Valentine's Day holiday. Our main trading partners, the United States and Europe, have the good habit of receiving many flowers these days, so capacity is doubled, airline operations are doubled, and also the production of the farms.
Airport Communication Manager Luis Galarraga expects several busy days.
This year, we foresee a growth in terms of export volumes in the Valentine's Day season of between 3 and 5%. Considering that last year the volume exported was over 26,000 metric tons, then we hope to achieve this growth of between 3 and 5%.
Couples will celebrate Valentine's Day Friday, February 14th. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And that's all for today. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific.